Hello, everybody. I would like to call to order the January 7th, 2026 regular meeting of the South Burlington School Board. We were originally scheduled to have an executive session today at 5 p.m. However, since we didn't have any executive session topics, we did not have it. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So we will.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is announcements. Do we have any announcements? The next item on the agenda is review and accept agenda. I do have a proposed change to the agenda. If you look at the discussion item section, the budget is the last item. However, due to some excellent efforts by the staff, the budget is actually ready for us to take a first look at. And so I was going to propose moving that to be immediately after the EPC presentation. Is that okay with the board?
Yes.
Great, so we will be moving the budget discussion to a little bit earlier. Does anybody else have any other agenda? Okay, great. Then we'll move forward. The next item on the agenda is comments from the public. There are two opportunities for the public to comment at this time about any topic. And also before the board takes action on an action item, but only on the topic being action. The board will not respond to public comment unless this board meeting is a specially designated community forum and the comment is on a topic warrant on the agenda. This particular meeting is not a community forum. You'll be given up to 3 minutes, which may be reduced depending on the number of people wishing to comment. Please do not violate anyone's privacy, and an official complaint or grievance can be filed during public comment.
Jerry's understood.
Great. Would you recognize Jerry?
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So I have two questions I hope you will answer at some point. I know this is not a community forum, so you won't answer them now, but at some point I would like the questions answered. The first question is, at the last meeting, we talked about grading and summative exams. If a student misses a summative exam, instead of getting a 0, they get a placeholder score of 50. In the discussion that followed and reading the slide that goes along with that discussion, it was unclear to me in South Burlington at the end of the quarter, if a student has a 50 placeholder, but they don't make up the deficiency, does the score revert to 0 or does the score stay at 50, which was the placeholder exam? Again, if a student does not make up a deficiency and was given a 50 when they would normally have been gotten a 0, but they got a 50 as a placeholder, at the end of the quarter, if they don't make up the deficiency, does the summative exam revert to a 0 or does the placeholder score of 50 remain? The second question I have, which I hope you will answer at some point, is in every budget, HRA funds are included in the budget. if an employee does not use the full amount of the HRA funds assigned to him or her, the excess funds do not roll over for the employee, but they revert to the district. The question I have, my question number 2 is, over the past few years, how many dollars of HRA funds, which were not used by employees, now remain in the district's kitty or rainy day fund? Anybody want clarification on my 2 questions? Or are they clear enough? No clarification needed?
Nope.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All right. Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the student representative report.
So South Burlington High School students began mid-years today and will continue this adjusted schedule through Monday the 12th. During these 4 days, students engage in extended 2-hour classes with only 2 classes a day. This is South Burlington High School's kind of version of midterms, and students often engage in larger projects and other assignments during this time. This year marks an important transition from the prior name, which was CAP Week, and CAP stood for Culminating Activity Period, and the name is now mid-years. This is in alignment with the high school's goal to move away from acronyms that may be confusing for the community. So good luck to all high school students this week.
Allie and I, in partnership with Student Council, have been working hard in our kitchen table discussions. These discussions will be held in all advisories in the high school and we'll be focusing on how to increase the student engagement. We have met with the high school staff this morning to iron out all the fine details, and we're gonna start them next week.
We'll update you guys on that later too. Also, did you all know that 24% of students at South Burlington High School are living in poverty? Student Ambassador Program, Key Club, Student Council, Student Justice Union, and Coalition for Community Service, all clubs that are at the high school, have partnered to start a food pantry located in the high school. This will be a location where students can freely access non-perishable foods and backpacks to carry it home in. This effort was started in hopes to give another accessible resource to food insecure families in our district. We've already run 1 successful food drive and sent several families home with food over the winter holiday break. So the club members are really excited to continue working on this long-term project. And thank you to Monica Verosher for her help with that. And that is all we have today.
Any questions from the board?
I'm just curious if that's something that if the community would like to support that effort, how they should, or how they could get involved and if they could contribute.
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure exactly what the policy is on like things being delivered to the high school. Off the top of my head, the only thing I can think of is like if people wanted to bring like bags of food, but I'm not sure on that. So I can check in with some of the admin at the high school and I can bring it up next meeting and let the community know.
Yeah, is that in collaboration with like the South Burlington Food Shelf? Is that where the food is coming from or?
We were planning on most of it coming from food drives within neighborhoods within South Burlington. The goal was that the families that can't access the food shelf would be able to have their students access it through the high school. We have thought about reaching out to them and offering a partnership, but haven't got to that yet.
Moving right along. The next item on the agenda is a discussion item about an early retirement program. This is an idea that the superintendent brought to us last fall, and maybe Joe, I'll let you introduce it.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Katie Rose and Mary Kelly, sisters, are here. They're based out of Michigan. I had the opportunity to work with them in Ohio. And we refer to it as an early retirement program, but what you're gonna hear in the presentation is not necessarily tied to retirement, but the whole idea behind this is it's a cost savings initiative. As we know, as we're in the middle of budget season, that we are looking for any way we can to save some costs. And we have several employees that are at the very highest end of the pay. And EPC is a company that works to provide incentives for those folks to leave, so we can replace those that we need to replace with lower priced folks. And also with the idea that we won't replace everybody that leaves, and that's where the savings come. So I will turn it over to Katie and Mary, and thank you both for being here.
Okay, we're gonna first pass.
Yep.
Should I just pass them down? Is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine.
That I have 9 copies there, and then any other copies distributed anywhere else, if it's ready,
If anybody, if there's extra copies.
Yeah.
And then if anybody in the public or in the staff table wants them.
And I suppose I should say that Mary and Katie are sisters. If you don't catch that, they're.
Yeah, Mary's older. I just have to get that out. We've always been done about 16 months apart. Yeah, we're Irish twins. Great. Well, thank you, Dr. Clark. So you can see that we've passed out a very thick version, which I believe Dr. Clark would share with you all. For tonight's meeting, we're gonna do Yes.
Yeah.
Tonight, we're gonna actually walk you through this version of the study, which is a little shortened from the larger one. This is kind of typical for any board meeting that we go to as far as the presentation. And we're happy to answer questions. What we're gonna do is walk through this summary that we have, and then we'll leave it open for questions. We're happy to be here. Your state is beautiful. Yeah, first time in Burlington area. It's just so lovely. You guys are blessed. So we're gonna start with the board summary. A little bit about our company. So EPC, Educators Preferred Corporation, has actually been around since 71. Our dad actually started it then, and since 1989, we've been working exclusively with school systems, higher ed, on structuring and implementing early buyouts. It's a voluntary plan, and you'll see. And it's a way to help school districts, public school systems, universities, through a voluntary program, offer to reward their hardworking staff, and then being able to either not replace them or replace them at a lower level. The nice thing about it, a lot of times we hear when we do like the general meeting, oh, they're trying to pay us to leave, but really it's voluntary, and each person's gonna have an opportunity to visit with our counselors to make the decision, because it is a big life decision. So, the company itself, like I said, we've been around since 71. It's the only thing that we do. We don't sell widgets or anything on the side, which is exclusively our consultant to school districts. And we are in about 14 states. And we are based out of Michigan, but right now Michigan and Ohio are our biggest client base. So page 2 is going to talk about the plan. It's called the Employee Seventh Plan, or ESP. As you all know, 80 to 85% of your budget is salaries and fringe benefits. So what this plan, the objective of this plan is to focus on those near or at the top of the pay scale. A lot of times people think retirement plan. It's only offered to those who can retire. We actually look at it as if we're able to capture those near or at the top of the pay scale as in the eligibility, it opens up that pool, and then it gives the district and the board the opportunity for those that are deciding to take it to be able to either not replace them or replace them at a lower level. We have about 16,000 participants receiving benefits through our company. And again, it's all we do as far as, consulting school districts. So page 3, you might say, well, why would we have an outside firm implement the plan? Well, we know it's a controlled approach to buyouts. It can be structured for specific employee groups, very cost effective. we've implemented well over 700 plans, and it greatly reduces the workload on your school's central office. In that we handle all of the details throughout the window period of enrollment. We also provide draft legal documents for review by your legal counsel. The most important part of what we do though is, we bring in a team of counselors, and it's not me or Mary, it's actually, past educators or administrators that have taken the plan through our company. We feel like that we've gotten the best feedback, especially like for a teacher, they're not sitting down with someone that works in our company, they're actually sitting down with someone who was an educator or administrator. And majority of them took the plan through our company, so they understand the plan. So with the counseling, you know, with this type of plan, we always say this is gonna be one of life's big decisions that they're making. And we want to make sure that through that window period, they have an opportunity to sit down and not only review the plans or the benefits of this plan, but also their pension retirement system. We give estimates for that as well. So it's a very turnkey from our perspective. And we basically handle all the details, you know, from now to if you move forward to the window period and then the benefit administration and beyond. All right, the next page is the executive summary. So obviously with this plan, you know, the objective is to reduce the percentage near at the top of the pay scale. When we studied South Burlington, it looks like you have about 314 teachers and 53% of them are eligible for the plan. So they're near or at the top of the pay scale. The eligibility. So as I said earlier, we don't want to just offer the plan just to retirees. We want to make sure we're capturing a larger pool. So there are 2 tiers to the eligibility. The employees either have to have 10 or more years of service with your district as of this June. And I just want to reiterate, this is a one-time offer. You know, this wouldn't be embedded in the contract. So how we handle that is through a memorandum of understanding with the association. So for the eligibility, again, 10 or more years as of this June, or if they're eligible under the VSTRS system, if they're eligible for full or reduced benefits, they'd be eligible. The plan benefits. So again, this is going to be offered to your full and part-time teachers and administrators. So here and after professional staff. The benefits for the professional staff who participate would receive, and your classified employees, I'm sorry. For the professional staff, employees electing would receive 85,000 divided into 60 equal payments. And then classified employees shall receive 100% of this year's base, not to exceed 30,000 divided over 60 months. So how this is structured is known as a post-employment 403B. And this allows public employers to pay a benefit for up to 5 years after an employee has exited the district. So what it is they do have to select a provider that's on your board approved list. You know, currently your teachers, some of them might do like tax sheltered annuity or 403B through payroll. So those are the companies per the IRS that they would have to select for this benefit to, you know, flow into. So in the enrollment packet, we would include that list for them so that they know what their choices are for where the money's going to go. The nice thing about the post-employment 403B is that the 85,000 will go in over the 60 months. And then the employee, in a way, have control over the taxes of it because they can take it out whenever they choose to take it out. Some people leave it in to grow. Others decide to, you know, have majority of it come back out to them and they can set that up with their 403B provider. A lot of them use it to supplement, you know, health insurance if they have to pay that through their state retirement system. So there's many different ways that, you know, the employees utilize it or let it grow and be another source of retirement income. Okay, so the window period, and this is just a sample, could be January through February, February through March. But because they're signing a release and waiver of claims agreement, by law, they have to be given a minimum of 45 days to consider the plan. And then that's followed by a 7-day revocation period. So you're kind of looking at a 52-day period for the window period, all of which will be defined in the plan documents for the employees. Exit date, so we always say June 30th because it's the end of the fiscal year. Obviously, schools get out at different times in the summer. But that's the exit date. And then the benefits would start in October for the employees. Operational needs, a lot of times, you know, with this type of plan, there might be certain positions that are hard to replace, right? So this would give this board the opportunity to retain certain employees that elect the plan for up to 1 year. So for example, we know nationally special education teachers are hard to find. So with this plan, this board would have, if you had, let's say you have 5 special education teachers that wanted to take it, you would have the ability to retain 1, 2, 3, 4, or all 5 of them for up to a year so that you could find your quality replacement. It's not something the employee can, you know, well, I want to take this, but I want to go next year. It's, you know, this is a one-time offer and the exit date is, you know, for this year. But sometimes people get a little nervous, like, oh, everybody in the district's gonna take this. That's never really happened. But it just gives you guys the opportunity to, if you felt like you needed more time to find the replacement. And maybe after 3 months, you find that replacement. So those employees would stay on up until the point that you were, you know, find your replacement, and then they would receive the benefits after. Again, your choice, not necessarily not actually the eligible participants. Effect on educational process, I mean, with this type of plan, obviously, you know, you are going to be losing a small percentage that decide to voluntarily exit. But in surveys that we've done, we've gotten a lot of feedback from administrators that the plan kind of revitalized the buildings, and that if, you know, new teachers coming in, working with senior staff, you know, it just kind of creates a little more new excitement in buildings, and, you know, everybody's pretty happy about it. The implementation, so again, we would implement the entire process on behalf of the district. Should the plan be approved, there would be, and again, this is, you know, we don't charge for anything up to this because we don't want to waste your resources. But if the plan is, you know, decided to move forward, there would be a $15,000 deposit, 15, not 50, due at the start of the window period, but it'll be 100% applied towards your first year plan cost. So, the billing explanation. So we utilize MetLife to underwrite all of the benefits for this plan. That's their only role. The checks will come from Met, but the participants will work with us at EPC. They won't have to call the district after. If they do, the district will give them our 800 number. But the nice thing about Met underwriting it is that a lot of times we get questions from the participants. Well, what if EPC goes out of business, you know, and we hope we don't. But it just gives them assurance that because it's being underwritten by an insurance company, you know, they have to hold the money in escrow now, even though it's paid out over 60 months. So it gives them a little more assurance as far as the benefits being paid. So the district will have an opportunity of paying for the plan in 1, 2, or 3 annual installments. Most of our clients select 3. So even though the employee is receiving the benefit over 5 years, you'll all have the opportunity to pay for it in 1, 2, or 3 annual installments. And all of the numbers that you've looked at in the study, where we're illustrating the savings, which we'll in a second, is net of all the plan and replacement costs. All right. Page 5 is the timeline. Honestly, this can be done any time of year. 1 year we actually did Detroit Public Schools in the summer, and it's not ideal. It was retroactive back to the school. Yeah, it was retroactive. It's not ideal, but you know, honestly, you're looking at this at a very good time of year. The nice thing about this is once that window period closes, it's not going to be like a typical year where you get a call in July. Oh, I'm going to retire this year. You know, so the district will, you know that much in advance who's exiting so that they're able to find the quality replacements. So this is just a sample of the timeline. Currently we've met with your administrators initially going through the larger study. The board would review it. At some point, the association would review it, and that part is mainly the MOU that, and it's up to your attorneys, but most districts will do an MOU so that they understand it's a one-time offer. It's not something that we embedded in the current contract. It's actually separate from that. So what we would provide is a draft MOU for your attorney for he or she to review. And then board approval, we do provide draft board resolutions. And once it's approved by the board, it becomes very turnkey from our perspective as far as, you know, handling everything. We hand over the legal documents for your legal counsel to review. An announcement would come out from Dr. Clark, where we would actually take his letterhead, give him a draft of what that looks like. He would, of course, revise it to his liking. And then with that, we send a data page for each employee so that they can give us certain things that maybe the district doesn't have necessarily readily available, like spouse's date of birth, things like that. So that's the initial correspondence that the eligible employees will receive, is that announcement memo. From that, they'll be able to call EBC, make appointments for their individual one-on-one counseling. They can turn their data pages in if anything needs changing. And then we prepare all the packages. We will hold a general information meeting. We'll be on site with counselors. That general meeting kind of, I guess, officially starts the 45-day period, which again will be published in their documents. Following the general meeting, like that evening, we'll have counselors starting to counsel. They'll remain here for the week counseling. And we'll arrange with your administrators as to where the counseling will be, the times, things like that. And then again, the resign retire date is June. So for the plan, it's offered this year, but the district will be billed in August through September. So the first payment would be due in the next fiscal year. And then the benefits will start October 15th for the participants. So page 6. So I know Dr. Clark had mentioned that with this plan, you know, getting a larger number to exit, it gives the district more opportunity to maybe restructure, not have to replace positions. But so we're gonna show less than full replacement here, and then we're also including full replacement on the next page. But just as you look at page 6 here, keep in mind that this is net of all plan and replacement costs. So this is the bottom line savings. So for your professional staff, and I will say majority, if not all of these, we say professional staff, including administrators and teachers, but majority are based on our model are going to be teachers. So our model is projecting 18, and we didn't replace 3 positions. So we're going to replace 15 in this scenario. So with 18 electing and then 15 replaced, and again, net of all plan costs, the net savings in that first year to the district is at $621,519. And then we go out 8 years with the savings. And again, this is just based on 18, taking it in the 1 year that it's offered. By the 8th year cumulatively, the savings is about 4.6 million. Our model is projecting 15 classified employees, support staff, 2 elects, and again, we didn't replace 3. So that first year savings for your classified is at $157,453. So for that first year, with 33 employees opting and 27 replaced, the district stands to save $779,000 rounding up. And again, after plan and replacement costs. So cumulatively with the less than full replacement, over the 8 years, the savings is about 6.3 million. This final page 7, so this is full replacement, and I don't want to say this is worst case scenario because there's still savings with this. But if for whatever reason, the 18 that took it had to be replaced, we wanted to make sure we include that. So you can see in the first year, with 18 electing and all 18 replaced, the district saves about 303,000 rounding up. Cumulatively about 1.5. And then you can see with classified, it's, you know, it's not great savings necessarily. I guess it goes without saying when, you know, a teacher's salary schedule versus like classified, which a lot of times for some of those positions, it's hourly. There's just not that huge saving difference. So you can see like the savings is not as great for the classified. But when you combine the two groups for the 33 opting, the 33 replaced, in that first year, it's about 280,000, and then cumulatively about 1.5. So again, as you look at these, just know the larger copy that we gave you tonight has all of the details behind that, and I know that you received that in advance as well. So we'd like to see if there's any questions.
Okay, so thank you very much. It was very interesting. My first question is, you indicated that this would be a one-time opportunity. So one and done, or is this something that you would repeat, every 3-5 years? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, we don't come back after we've done a plan. I mean, we have, but it's been like 10, 15, 20 years that we've gone back and done a second plan.
Okay.
Because if these teachers are expecting it to come every 2 years,
Right.
you're really just gonna be losing, because they'll just wait until the next plan comes
Got
along.
it.
So that's why the benefit is so powerful, and we'll get the optical numbers to leave now versus thinking there's gonna be a plan in future years, which they're not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and also with that, it's
If it was written into the contract, it would obviously.
yeah, it would become cost prohibitive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I did hear you say that. It's not a
Yes.
contract. It's
No.
not.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good question, because interestingly enough, this past year, we did a bunch of districts around Cleveland in Ohio. That we did when we were pregnant with our babies, like literally like over 20 years ago, that have come back. There has been cases where maybe after a few years where we've implemented, they're like, ooh, we'd really like you to study this again, and we do. And we'll go back to them, we call it our Dear John letter, but no, you can't do it this time, because you really just be bonusing out your normal retirements, and it becomes a cost. So, I mean, you all can see this is a very meaningful benefit, but the reason for that is to get the optimal number to elect. And, it worked. We always say it's win-win-win, because you're rewarding your hard working teachers and classified employees with this offer, which is voluntary. And the board saving money, and, we love talking to our participants after, especially this year, there was a lot. And how's retirement? Oh my gosh, it's so great. I'm going on a cruise next week. It's fun, and we really enjoy our job.
We do. We don't get a lot of complaints from people,
Yeah.
if any, because everybody's happy. They're getting the benefit that, the district is saving money. It's really, it's a great job to have. And quickly, just going back to one other point, the study that we just went through, when we do implement a plan, we come back at the end and we will take the actual salaries that went out and where you replace them at. It's called a post study, to show you that we just didn't pull these numbers out of thin air, that we actually have, a model that tells us how many are gonna opt and what the savings is gonna be. And that's probably the best part about
Yeah,
that.
it is.
We get to come back and,
Surely show you.
Yeah,
Because obviously, there are districts that we've studied that as a consulting firm, we say no, because we don't want to do a plan that's not going to be successful. So, that's kind of how it is. And the teachers are told up front, like if they're sitting with our counselors and they say, oh, I'm just gonna take this next time. It's like, don't count on the next time with this, this is something the district's doing right now so that they can look towards the future of what, their budget needs to look like. It's voluntary. And it's not something that's just gonna come along every couple of years. So we make sure our counselors communicate that with the employees, because otherwise they might get their hopes up that, oh, let's wait and see. Yes.
Can you help me understand the cost to the district? I'm looking at page 8 of the feasibility study.
Yeah.
And I see a total estimated plan cost. Can you just help me understand that number and the inputs there?
Yes, okay, so if everybody wants to turn to the larger booklet. So, first of all, at that top, if you wanna look to the right, you can see the benefit is 85,000. And then to the left, the plan cost, you can see is 86,047, so it's a bit higher. And that takes into account filing fees, that MetLife will, build into the contract. So on average, because it's based on like treasuries and interest rates and things like that. With interest rates
lately, we've had quite a few of our, clients pay off in one and they end up paying like less than the benefit we paid out. And again, at the billing time, we're gonna present you with all paying 3, 2, and 1, so that the district can make a decision. But yes, the additional fees in there are just recording, filing fees. Matt will actually price the plan for us based on that type of thing. They actually have like a little department, and we've been working with them for 30 years, just based, their little department they have is for exclusively our buyouts that we do. So we have to go to them to get the price. So per participant, that total cost, and again, it'll be spread over 3 years, is at 86,000. And then in addition, we have a consulting fee of $220 per participant that elects in each of the 3 years. So adding those two together, that's, you know, total cost
Per
of
part.
per participant elected.
So if I go to page 9, then I'm
Yep.
seeing plan cost for 18 employees at 516,000,
That's
year 1,
correct.
2, and 3. So the number we should really be thinking about in this context is a little over 1.5,
Yes.
right? Relative, if we're trying to contextualize
Over the
cost
3
to
years,
benefit.
yes, yeah. And I'm glad you asked this because let's say you all chose 3 years and then maybe you got a windfall from the state or something. And you come to us and say, well, we want to pay it off early. So then we would go back to Met to reprice it and it would be discounted to pay it off early. What won't happen is, we'll set what the plan cost is and we won't come to you in year 2 and say, guess what, it's gone up. It'll be fixed so that it can be budgeted for. It's not gonna change once, we price it with Met at the time. So.
That 220 per person consulting fee, is that if only for the people who are elected into the plan?
Yes, yep, great question. Yep, it's 220 per participant electing, so our total is 660, over the years. Mhm. And that fee will go down a bit if it's paid off in 2 and 1 as well.
Can you talk about, how you came up with the projection that 18 class or certified employees might take this plan?
Sure,
And also talk about, what your assumptions are for those that we do replace. At what level would we
Yeah.
bring them?
great. So we have a really great model that we use through the years that we've developed. When we study the data from a district, our model assigns probability ratios to each of your employees based on, years of service, age, stuff on the salary schedule. We look at the retirement system parameters as well, and that all comes into this model. And then based on, our model also recommends a benefit based on the salaries paid and things like that. So for this district, the 85,000 was what our model recommended. If we went higher than that, we really don't, let's say we went to 90. We honestly think it'll still be in that 18 range. If you start lowering the 85,000, it tends to decrease that number opting. And the worst thing that can happen is that you just bonus out like those that were going to retire. So, 85,000 is a lot, but to get the optimal number to leave and get the savings, it's really important that you come up with an amount that's going to attract the most to consider it. On your question of replacement, so we did ask South Burlington for quite a bit of data on all of your teachers and classified, because what we do in our model does is it looks historically where this district hires in, right? We don't just say, okay, everybody's replaced at step 1. I mean, that's not reality, right? Because it's gonna depend on position. So we take an average of recent new hires from the district to get a base of what the district's practices are as far as replacing. And then for next year, we put whatever the paying fees is on top of that. So it's a very important number. I probably should have said that earlier. Like, how these plans don't work is if you replace everybody back at the top and you defeated the whole purpose. So, we do spend a lot of time and did spend a lot of time with your team on making sure that this number is in the range. And it's always best to be maybe a little bit higher than lower because, we don't know exactly what those 18 positions are. So what we want to do is take an average of where historically you've replaced. And just so people know, the average replacement base that we came up with is about 67,000, and that's just the base. So to replace the top scale, which that base is approximately 104,000. So that 104,000 is a weighted average of those eligible for this plan. We're not gonna just take a straight average. Our model actually gears towards those more likely to elect, and in doing that, it comes up with that base average of about 104,000. So by replacing that 104 with your 67,000, the gross reduction per position is about 45,725, so.
And our model is amazing. I mean, we
Yeah.
had tens of thousands of, names and data going in there, and sometimes it shocks us how close we are as far as the
Yeah.
numbers that we project and the numbers that we actually get.
And
Usually
it's really because of all the actual data from our experience, and so when plugging things in, it's amazing that we get that close, but I think it's mainly because we have, as Mary said, tons of thousands of participants that have been built into this model.
What happens with healthcare and retirement for teachers here at Vermont?
I believe there's not post-employment, is Daisy still?
Is there post-employment healthcare for teachers?
Not from the district, they get it through the retirement system, is that right?
Through the retirement system. And that's normal. Back in the day, a lot of the states did pay it, and it was such an unfunded liability, but yeah, thankfully it's changed. You don't have that.
The,
Sadly, that's
You know.
Sadly, that's.
your projection,
Oh,
Sadly, that's.
I know, but now you're a board member.
your projection's 18 and we see the savings. If the board passes this and we go into it and 7 employees say they're gonna take this, what is the board's,
Sure,
can
so.
they back out?
Yeah, so, and I'll paraphrase. So the board, then we can show you, we can do a break even for you, we might have already. But we can give you guys a break even of like where no money's lost, right? But, as far as the paperwork to the employees, and I'm gonna paraphrase here, but there'll be a paragraph in there that will state. At the close of the window period, this Board of Education will have the right to evaluate the results of the plan. If it's not financially positive for the district, they may deem the plan null and void. So that, at that point, you're out 15,000, obviously, because that's a non-refundable, and we've already gone through the entire window period and everything. But, so that gives you like a safety net. Some people say, well, we should just put that break-even number in there. And we kind of, because we've had these districts that have done that, and then everybody's calling our offices, how many are signed up?
Yeah.
How many are signed
Or
up?
they're looking around trying to count how many people would,
They
they think would take it. So
And if they don't come up, that,
sometimes it's not actually good for the numbers to grow because people are trying to figure out.
yeah, they all kind of shoot themselves in the foot,
Right.
waiting for just.
Or they wait to the last day too to see how many people are.
But with that language, I just paraphrase, that you can do the same, right? It's just scary when you put a number in, but the outcome is the same. You will have that right. We'll do that post summary for you all. You'll have that right at that point to say, okay, it's great, or, and it doesn't happen,
I was just gonna say,
often at all.
it rarely.
The one time it happened in Ohio was when that huge DHL moved out of that town, and we had just done the buyout.
And so they all lost their job.
Their spouses.
Their spouse's job, so.
So
that-
we even gave them the deposit back, because it felt so bad.
So
Yeah, because all the teachers that had taken it were like,
we have to
no.
work now.
So,
So
that was a very extreme situation,
Yeah,
obviously,
but
but
very rarely happens.
yeah.
Any other board questions? Any questions from staff? All right,
Yeah, so I mean, clearly we're not voting on this, but I mean, the hope would be, my hope would be for the board to consider this, and if they're going to move forward within the next 2 board meetings in January to make a decision. Because the sooner we can do this, it helps us for budgeting for next year, for seeing how to start looking for replacements and analyzing which replacement we're gonna need.
And Dr. Clark had worked in a few of our clients, in Ohio, so
And did successful plans.
yes, and he's very familiar, obviously,
And I can speak to this too, and I don't mean to talk before. This is why I like EPC, because I did work with them in one district that we implemented the plan and it went great, and it was all retirees except one gentleman who was like a 14-year teacher who just wanted to, he didn't like his job and he wanted to take that change, so that helped him find a career change.
Yep.
Then the next district I was in, I brought you in and you said to me, it's not, you will not, do not book us, it's not gonna
Yeah,
save you
it's
money.
not gonna work.
And which I really respected.
Yeah.
And now my buddy is superintendent of that district, and I understand you did go back several years later and
Yes.
it is working. for them.
Nordonia,
I don't,
Yeah.
yeah, they had a great plan there, yeah,
They did, so.
Yeah.
we got our numbers exactly there.
I think that's the thing, is that you've recognized, based on the composition of our district, that the juice could be worth the squeeze with something like this.
Yeah,
That
I
it-
mean,
like, it-
53%.
Yeah, at the top.
53%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's,
so,
that's pretty. awesome.
I mean, so that,
Okay.
314, that's 166.42 roughly, right?
as far as eligible,
Yep.
yes, you're correct.
And so we're estimating, 90, just a little over 10%,
Right.
you're saying. So there is a potential, though, that even more could come forward.
There is a potential,
The
but
savings would go up.
yeah,
obviously.
savings would go up, but it's not gonna be double that.
Right, right, right.
Unless there's something that we're unaware of.
That our model
can't measure. We had one district that actually, they got more than they had expected, but our counselors reported back to us, there's a lot of turmoil within the administration with
Right.
it was,
Right.
they wanted out.
Yeah.
So they did get quite a few more, but we didn't know that at the time that it was study.
And if that were the case, remember, you all have that operational needs clause, so if you felt like too many are leaving in 1 year, you can artificially build in a second exit date to kind of
Right,
spread it, right?
Right.
Yep.
And just.
And that's
stagger it.
completely up to the
Stagger. I think the only question that I have that I'm not entirely clear on is the cost for administrating the plan. And I know you brought this up. And I see the 220 times, it looks like 220 a year per person times 3. But that's only 660 times, even if you look at 18, it works out to $11,880.
Right, yeah.
So that's it?
So,
I don't know if it's 12.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, because I feel like I'm missing something.
yeah, or you mean page 8 that shows the plan cost, is that?
Well, page 12 is the aggregate, which I think is the view we want to take.
Okay.
I think page 8 is the per
Yeah,
employee
yes.
cost,
Yes,
which was a little confusing to me as well.
yeah,
Page 12 shows the aggregate cost, Jen, in that table.
Okay.
But yeah, helping us understand those.
yeah, so
plan costs.
it's boxed in there.
Yeah, so it's it's 516,000 roughly per year for that, for the
For the 18
implementation of the
18.
plan.
Yes.
Correct.
And then, if you kind of look in that boxing area in the middle, that's the plan cost. And
Right,
then the cost to pay out for benefits.
right,
Yeah,
yeah, but that is taking into consideration, even that 1.5 for the plan implementation cost is taken into consideration when you look at it over like the 8-year payout, right?
yeah,
And you're still netting 1.5.
yeah, I mean, you're still, and I don't want to take too much more time, in fact, if you
Yeah.
guys want to look at your page. Let's go to page, the lesson for the exception, go to page 11 if you all don't mind.
Okay.
Actually, go to 10, sorry. So we do a page in here, based on these 18 individuals that are taking it. So page 10 is like, if the plan had never come along, and what our model does is it ascertains when each of these 18 would have left, right? So this is without the plan, and these 18 employees leaving over the next 8 years. So essentially what's saying, if you didn't offer the plan, potentially 2 of these 18 could still be in the district. And again, it's looking at ages, years of
So you're up
service.
to 4.6.
Yeah,
That's that number.
so yes. 4 points.
So we.
Did I see that?
Looking at page 10.
Yeah,
So in it, yeah.
4.6. 55.
so yeah, on page 10, this is status quo, like just paying, having your employees leave, that would have taken the plan, and when they would have left under normal circumstances, right? So the district would have saved that 1.9 million.
And the next page.
And then page 11, by offering the plan now to these 18. In comparison to, had they stayed,
Okay.
That's where the net savings.
Yeah,
is.
so like
We're not
that-
taking credit for the savings that would have occurred had those 12 people gone out when they went out in those future years.
Right.
This actually subtracts that out and shows you the net savings from doing the plan.
So like
That 2.7.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. You will save the 4.6 cumulatively over the 8 years, but in consideration, had they gone normally, you know, you would have saved, right? So that's where we come down to the 2.7. So
Okay.
does that make sense? So where we would say no is if this page looked bad, like
If it was 0%.
it was negative
Yeah,
or
negative.
just a break even.
Yeah.
then we wouldn't recommend it. You know, if our model wasn't showing 18, when, you know. So, yeah, the model's very comprehensive and does a great job for that actually.
Any other board questions right now? What's the lead time, you know, between when we say yes and you kickstart the 45 or the 52-day period?
Yeah, so if you know, if the board does want to move forward with it, there can be a lot of work behind the scenes, leading up to that board approval date that we would take care of. So that we could actually get those announcement memos to possibly go out
The next
the
day.
next day after board approval, so your office isn't getting a million phone calls. Oh, we understand that there's this plan
It
that
was
was
approved last night. It was
everyone
all
knows
about.
what it's about, but this way they would actually have in hand the
The
explanation with the memo coming from you, Dr. Clark. You know, explaining the plan to them.
But if you didn't want to do that, then that's fine too, obviously, we typically can open the window about 10 days to 2 weeks after board approval, start that 45 days, so. Generally, what we'll do in the next phase, if it does move forward, is provide a detailed timeline with all the steps. I mean, it looks, we showed you the steps in there, but like as far as what needs to happen, when the window will close and all of that, based on,
Yeah.
if you know, we usually base that on a board approval date, if that's, you know. If that's gonna be the next.
On our
phase.
end, everything is turnkey. You give us the
Yeah.
date and then we know exactly where we need to be on that timeline.
We do collect a little more data, Daisy. Just a little more data for those eligible, but beyond that, yeah, like Mary said, it's from our perspective, we return key. You know, you all approve everything, of course, but we'll behind the scenes prepare the stuff. Like the announcement we had is we'll prepare, we'll send them to you, or maybe we'll even bring them ourselves, because we love it here. To go in their mailboxes, like we'll send it to you, and it'll be delivered. You know, we still use paper because people kind of like that sometimes, but yeah, so they'll get that right in their mailbox.
And if they still want to call you, all you have to say is just call UPC. They have the answers. Yeah, so.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
much for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime you want.
So we amended the agenda and moved the budget item to come next, and the reason for that is because we weren't expecting to have the budget today to discuss. And so that was a placeholder. Luckily, or through a lot of effort, as I understand it, the proposed budget is ready today. So Joe, do you want to lay out the basic outlines?
Yeah, I would lay out the basic outlines and then, Jean Marie will talk more. I'm looking for the documents that I sent you the other day.
Would you mind if I kind of
No, go
hit
right.
highlights
No,
or the kind of don't bury the lead, right? So my understanding is that this board asked for an inflation-based budget, 3.4%. That has been done. And the result, when you look at the estimated tax rate, is approximately a 9% tax rate. So from a increase in spending of 3.4% to a tax rate increase of 9%. And then another aspect of the budget that we have to consider, that's a top line item, is that there is a surplus from last year. So just some top line things that we should keep in mind as we talk about this. Let's take it away.
yep, so share my screen. See it? Yeah, I'll make it bigger. Thank you so much. Right.
And just in terms of, how we would like to present it, I think we want a pretty brief, high-level discussion.
Yeah, I will do that. So the first thing that I want to share with you is the tax rate, because that's what, I think that's what causes the most discussion among the community. Now, the board in December, November, December, let us know that they would like to look at a budget that includes 3.4% increase to what our current budget was. So our current budget for FY 26 is 71.5 million. That would have given us a $73.9 million budget for FY 27. And when we and again, this is all preliminary information, and my understanding is it changes often in Vermont, that daily different things adjust the tax rate. But as it is, as of yesterday, increasing that budget 3.4% to $73.9 million would have an estimated tax increase of 8.67% here in South Burlington. I do understand that was likely higher than what the board was perhaps expecting when they asked us to go for that 3.4%, and I'm sure we will talk about that later. But what we were able to do with that increased budget of 3.4% was basically made. We were able to keep status quo almost all of the classroom touching positions in all of our buildings. The difference between keeping everything the same and which would have been like a 6% increase and only increasing 3.4% was about $2 million. And we were able to find the majority of that in central office. And frankly, it was through things like not replacing some administrators that have left, like a communications director and a technology director. It included reducing budgets that we had, but money had been budgeted in prior years that was never touched. It was sitting in an account, so we backed that out. Being able to do that caused us to be able to come up with this budget, this $73.9 million budget, with very little impact to the buildings. The most significant impact that we saw would be to nursing. We were going to reduce a couple of nurses, and that's where we are. When you look at the other, so what you're looking at now is the tax yield, right? When we look at so when we look at the actual budget model and what that looks like. This. Those won't be the market. Some of yeah.
Just download it and then go for it.
Okay.
Download it. And yeah, and it should be able to.
Thank you. So it's green.
It's so screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You can make it better, you can make it bigger here on.
Yep.
Oh, you got it, okay.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll put that.
So when you look at the actual,
You have to go zoom in a little bit more.
Yeah, let's say 100%.
I'm gonna talk. Good.
Oh, I think it's sharing a different window.
Okay, thank you. Apologize. Screen share. Share again. There we go. Okay, thank you for your patience and apologize. Okay, so looking at, I asked the finance department to look at this two ways, through objects and funds, which are two separate things. So with this line, or with this sheet, you'll see that our salary increases go up from 38 million to 41 million in the proposed budget. The benefits go up a certain amount. And I gave the board, when I shared this with you, just some feedback that you do in the changes, you see that there are some changes that look unusual. And that is because of the good work that the finance department did in making some corrections or clarifying how things might have been coded before. So I know we have a community member of the audience who have had questions about why is this number so high and why is it so, why is, what is that money doing in that account? Why is that, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why you'll see that these numbers change. There's some pretty significant changes in these. But what it comes down to is the vast majority of our money is spent in salaries and benefits. And you can see where the rest is. Then I asked them to put it together in a.
Just so you know, we can't see the
Can't
far
see that.
left side of these.
Labels.
Sorry about.
Can you make the columns narrower, the first columns?
It's a PDF, so no.
Oh, no, okay.
We just reduce it a little bit. A little.
Can you read that?
Yes.
Okay, so these are the general fund expenses, but then I asked them also to put it by object code. So for instance, when we look at salaries and benefits, you'll see that, 41 million is in salaries and 16 million is in benefits, 57, almost 58 million. But the question might be, well, how is that spent? So I had them divided by like instruction. So 41 million is spent on things that would qualify for under instruction, direct instruction, special education, vocational education, etc. Now, the numbers, the bottom line still come out to be the same, $73.9 million. It's just a different way of looking at how we are proposing to spend that money. And again, with the board authorizing that the 3.4% increase, and with us making finding the reductions at the central office level, there's very little change to operations at the building level. And having stammered through that for such a long time, Jean Marie, will you please relieve me of this horrible presentation?
You took most of the words right out of my mouth, Joe. I think, the only thing I would really highlight is that, Joe, maybe you could share that very first, the tax rate estimator form that you shared. One of the biggest things that's impacting our budget this year is our 2-year average of our daily membership. So the number of students that we have on a 2-year average, which is what all of the districts use, what the AOE calculates for us, we provide them data. We've gone down, it's line 5, our weighted pupils, you'll see in the FY 26 budget, we had 4,063.19. And now in the 27 budget, we're at 3,920. So we've decreased by 3.5%. So our number of staffing has remained the same from year to year, right? But we're educating less students over a 2-year average. So when I look at this number and really everything above that black bold line is what we have control over here. Everything below the line is stuff that is controlled outside of this building, outside of this district. I feel like we've done we are doing an excellent job in stewarding our funds, and just the number of students that are actively on our registry is just lower. And that we don't have any control over that, unfortunately, but that does impact how these numbers roll out. And then the other thing I would say is just like, you know, as I am a newer employee here in my 18 months here, you know, driving around South Burlington, I think, wow, there's like tons of buildings, tons of housing going up. So it strikes me odd that our number of our weighted pupil isn't going up. Again, it's a 2-year average. And as I said to Joe and the team earlier this week, I guess it's just like singles and couples without kids that maybe their kids are coming, right? We haven't got to that stage yet, but we were all a little surprised, and really kudos to our data team who scrubbed those numbers big time, and the attendance folks in the school buildings that help us chase down students that was this student on our books? Where did that student go? So there's really a lot of work to go into, I found 3 more students. So, but unfortunately, yeah, I just think that's one of the biggest impacts on this number tonight.
So if I can just say, I mean, my gut feeling is that an almost 9% tax increase is not sustainable. I mean, I just feel like right out of the gate, I don't feel like that's sustainable. So my next question would be, and Joe, I don't know how difficult, Jean Marie, this would be to do. But you know, when we had talked about this back in November, December, we had looked at the different scenarios, and one of the scenarios was we stayed flat at the 71 million. And I'd be curious to know what kind of implication that would have to property taxes. I mean, I imagine it still would go up somewhat, right? I imagine it would.
I can't answer that.
Okay.
If we were not to increase our budget at all, if we were to stay with a 0% increase, our tax, based on our current estimates, taxes would go up just over 4%.
I mean, so to clarify the last few minutes of conversation, I think what Jean Marie was saying was that the biggest impact on us has been declining enrollment, at least according to the numbers, but the numbers show that we're declining enrollment. And what we're talking about just now is that back when we were giving instructions to the superintendent about what budget level to prepare for, we actually looked at 3 different levels. 0% increase from last year, inflation-based increase, and status quo, which was around a 6% increase. And so I think that what Joe just said is that he has already gone to the effort of calculating what the tax rate increase would be if we were on a flat budget of 0%, and that would be 4%. So essentially, as it stands, the budget in front of the board represents a 9% tax increase. And I would
8.67.
8.67. 4.7. It would be attributable to the work that you.
And then the flat budget would be a 4
Yeah, just over 4.
Just over 4. So how does the board feel about, so one option that the board could have right now is we could ask the superintendent to go back and revise this budget to be the 0% increased budget. So we would still be accepting a 4% tax increase. And of course, another option this board could do is we could go back and we say, well, aim for a 0% tax rate increase based on this.
I think we'd be going back.
That would be a big reduction.
That would be, yeah.
Because we have to remember what goes on in these buildings. Like, I hear a lot of talk about running this like a business. This is not a business.
Yeah.
And this is human capital we're talking about. And, we feed these children $30 million a year. Healthcare, we have no control over it. Governor Scott did not mention one word about healthcare. And that's at the state level, and that's what they wanted. And so they have to, now we all have to deal with it. He's capped mental health, so now that's fallen to schools. We pay thousands of dollars to Howard Center. Essex does too. That should be taken care of at the state level. We're being asked to do that.
Okay.
And the problems are getting heavier and heavier as the drug problem increases and parents are abdicating. I had so many children whose parents are out of the picture. So now we have to do it. That's a lot of what I do. I parent, I social work. It is amazing that any of us gets anything done. So I really I personally don't, I think that's a bad idea. I think that you would really be hurting things, but.
What's it for, sorry?
So
Going backwards is,
Going
you
less
said,
than 0%.
is, that's a bad idea, is that,
I mean, a budget reduction, the budget.
reduction, that's right.
okay, no, I just.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And I hear that, Laura, and I totally hear that, and I, as a parent, I mean, I get it. I think the challenge is things are expensive for everybody right now, and it gets to a point where it is unsustainable, where people are like, if it keeps going up and keeps going up, and it's another 10% here or 9% here, I mean, it gets to a point, there's a tipping point. And so my feeling is, I think that as a district, we have a responsibility to start looking at more innovative ways like EPC and figuring out if we can, maybe it is an opportunity to, merge and do other things with other districts or. Yeah, or look at our footprint. And I know that's something, we're also considering, like, is there ways that we can change our footprint with district, all of these things. And I think we've got to be innovative and more creative to the way that we do things and break the status quo, because we do need to be responsive to our students and help our families and help our communities invest in tomorrow, our children, but at the same time, we cannot drown our taxpayers. And I just feel that a 9% tax increase is going to be too much.
Well, and it's coming on the heels of 41% over the last 5 years. Michelle, do you have any?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
haven't
just
spoken about it.
very quickly, I mean, where we're at right now, the reality is, we can dig in our heels and we can spend that number. Or we can recognize the reality that that's not gonna pass, right? So we can adapt now,
Yes.
or we can adapt in April. Or March is when that vote is.
And, oh, sorry.
I mean, if you look back over the years that the budget has been voted down, it's about these levels, so the level that we're looking at,
Last year.
this high, where it just hasn't passed. And even if we were to have a flat, no increase, and you're looking at, a 4% increase in your tax rate, most people aren't getting 4% raises. It's,
And we're
So-
certainly
so-
not getting that.
Would anybody like to advocate for, so what I wanna do is I wanna go to the extremes and then come to the middle, which is the 0%. So would anybody like to advocate for either going backwards and spending less than last year?
No.
Or alternatively, staying at the 3.4% level that we've originally, does anybody wanna advocate for either of those?
Don't want to advocate for going lower, but I do want to just, I did some back of the napkin. I think I got close. I was, we're at 4.5, you said a little over 4. If we have zero spending, that's the current tax rate, right? That's without a buy down by the state. That's without any of the other factors that make that go up and down a little bit. But back of the napkin, to get to the social security increase is like a 3.5 reduction. Just as a benchmark, right? Like if we wanted our tax rate to mirror what the typical person in South Burlington sees as an annual raise, we would be looking at going down 3.5-ish.
So are you advocating
And
for
that's like
going below
40
0%?
FTEs. I'm not. I would like to. I don't feel comfortable that I would ever have any support from anybody on that, so.
And one other thing that we didn't talk about during the budget, was there is, as I understand it, a budget surplus from last year. And, I bring that up because I think it's important for people to know, but I'll also preface it with saying that like, I don't support using that internally to buy down any property taxes.
100%.
So is there anybody on the board who wants to advocate for using a surplus from our current budget to buy down?
No.
Need to rebuild.
Temporary fix, which pushes the problem further down the road and reduces our, money available for emergencies. Personally, I think that is reckless and would get us through one budget cycle at the risk of creating a much bigger liability on the community than it would make sense. And the district would not have the funds then, or less funds to adapt to whatever one-time expenses came out of it.
Okay, and is there anybody who wants to advocate for the 3.4% inflation budget?
I don't want to specifically advocate for something like that, but can I add to the conversation?
Of course.
I wanted to bring back up the conversation we had, when Debbie was here during our board retreat. And I know the board had a lot of different opinions on this, but she had given the point that as a school board, you need to do what's best for the school district and what's best for your students. And I think going even as far as going to 0% increase or below that would have a drastic impact on the students. And I don't know what our schools would exactly look like when we go that far. So I just wanted to add to the conversation that like, yes, what the taxpayers are going to pass is really important, but also some of us should be advocating for what does the school district need from the community, right? I get if we go to March and we stay with the 9%, we're just gonna be pushing it farther. Is that information just like what you guys hear from community members talking to you about what they would vote on? Kind of deal, do you know what I mean? Or just your assumption on?
Experience, it's past experience.
That's what I've heard, and looking back. I think there were 3 years over the last decade where it's taken 3 votes to get the budget passed, and it's all because of those high tax rate increases.
And I think, I mean, one way to think about it, and I don't know how this argument will make sense, but is if you want to defend public education, which is a tradition that we have, like the military, like the post office, you have to think about the long-term financial sustainability. And also you have to think about the legitimacy in the eyes of the people who are being taxed and have pulled the purse strings. So, in a way, making the hard decisions now, feeling the pain now is the way that you ensure it for the future generations of children. Because, there are, I mean, I think as Joe can attest, coming from Ohio, there are alternatives to public education that can harm public education and that can come into the vacuum that may be left by either, losing legitimacy or just simply, losing budgets. So it's a big picture.
You can't have it both ways. You can't zero fund your schools and have them be really excellent. So there's demand for excellence, there's demand for rigor. You're not gonna have it. That's not gonna happen. So I think you just can't, it's expensive. It's fallen into the laps of school boards, which I think is unfair. I don't see any advocacy at the state level. They're talking about level foundation funding formula. So if we think this is wait. So I think I don't see Yeah, people don't, I don't know, people don't wanna pay for it, but they want their schools excellent, they want rigor, it's all we hear, well, you can't have it both ways.
But the thing is.
You cannot,
No.
you cannot put that on teachers. And it's just too much because you're gonna, like, class sizes are already, like, for Vermont are already big and they're gonna get bigger. So, and the needs, the level of need in my rooms. So I've got a class of 25. Like 18 kids, I'm practically their parent. So you know, you're gonna ask me to take on 35 kids because we're gonna reduce and reduce and reduce. So I'm just saying, as a human being, I will have to do less. Cannot meet that need. So I'm just putting the human face out there.
When you look at that 8.67% increase in the tax rate, that's pretty much triple current inflation. And again, it's non-sustainable over the long term. Eventually, it's going to collapse. So you're going to have to, at some point, make the tough choices. And the longer you wait to make them, the harder it gets.
So I don't think anybody enjoys, like, this is obviously a tough situation, nobody enjoys being in it, so let's just recognize that, right? We're either talking about burdening our local taxpayers above inflation or asking schools to do more with less, like neither, so like there's.
Yeah.
We're stuck between tough situations and there's humans on both sides of that, we need to be like students, taxpayers, administrators and teachers, we're gonna be caught in the middle. But I will just state, I agree and echo like the desire to have like a long-term sustainable budget, which would be below 9%. And if we look at one of, you know, we can't solve the world's problems at once, but if we look at one of the larger demographic trends in the last 6 years, it was relocation from high tax communities and states to like the Sun Belt and lower tax communities and states. And if we care about having young families and students in this district and reversing a declining student population, we need to have a community that is affordable for families. And I want to fund education as much as we can, but if that comes at the expense of making a community that is too expensive for young families to live in, we create a death spiral that, you know, it catches up with us in the end anyway. So I would like to avoid that. And also just speaking from experience, I have at least 5 other, you know, close friends and couples who have chosen to not move to South Burlington because it's too expensive. They've chosen other communities for that. And these are young families, with children. So this is a tough situation. I don't think 9% is sustainable. And I think you need to make our community more affordable for families.
Sure.
It may be another topic, and let me know if it is. If we go back, does that mean you'll go back to the principals, have them all redo their schools? And then will we be able to see that before it's represented to the board?
Principals would definitely have input. I don't know that you would see it before we have a chance to get to the board. We're running up against the deadline. Yeah. I would ask, is there something other than 0 that the board would consider, maybe not going down to 4% or 4.5%, but 5 or 5.5? Does it need to be 0?
The zeros, pretty much 4.5%.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe for clarity, I feel like a 0, I mean, a 0 is easy to explain. And then if you discover, well, if you know, what do we get for the difference between 4 and 5%? You know, so I think where we're at right now in this discussion is that the majority of the board wants the superintendent to come back to us as soon as possible, hopefully next week, although we can't tell you how long it's going to take you to do that. A 0% budget. And then also we're interested if there is, you know, maybe a little bit above 0, if there's some compelling reason, but there's no guarantee that we would obviously go that direction. So are we good on this discussion for today? And do you feel like you have what you need from us?
I think that I can have to you before next week, a budget that has a 0% increase. With principal input, but without knowing, and the board doesn't need to know this anyway, what the specific, it's going to mean reducing FTEs. We're not going to know what those positions are, but it's just math, right? I can figure out how many requests to get for him.
Well, you know, I think, and that's your role and that's our role. Yep. And that's good separation.
And then one thing I would also consider too is as we're hearing, you know, with some of these strategic considerations, like how could that, if we were to pursue some of these things, again, there's a lot that would hinge on whether or not you could actually capitalize on it. Like, yes, do people, if we do pursue EPC as an example, right? Things of that nature, like how could that possibly offset some of this as well?
Yeah, I agree, and I also think that that's, I mean, the timing of EPC, let's imagine the board goes with that. It's not, it will not be in time for us to consider it for next year's budget.
And then just as, so. Next week, 0% budget. I also think there seemed to be broad consensus that we're not interested in anything that appears to be a buy down of property taxes through the surplus.
Right.
Okay, cool. Are we good on that, board? We're ready to move?
Yes, 10 minutes of this
Okay.
discussion topic.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is redistricting statement, and this was strategic. Thank you very much, Shimmer. Thank you very much for finishing.
Oh, can I say one more? I do want to thank
Yes,
Dr. Clark and your team, Jean Marie, for an excellent job, right? It's, the fact that everything is being done right and we still have this problem is no reflection on the work that you've done. It is the circumstance of history of spending and Vermont education finance law. It is the confluence of those things that is putting us in this position. None of us want to make these decisions. These are probably the hardest decisions that anybody in a community needs to make when it comes to their schools. So I
Thank
want
you.
to acknowledge that and
Thank
thank
you.
you really
Yes.
sincerely for the hard work that you put into this.
Yeah.
You've done an excellent job.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that.
so Sri, we can't take public comment right now. I'm so sorry. You can only take it at the beginning, but if you have any comments, please do send it to us. And you can obviously dialogue with us during the course of the week while we're, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So the next item on the agenda is redistricting statement. The reason that this is on the agenda right after the budget is because redistricting consolidation is known to in some cases reduce per pupil costs, which is the concern that I think we all have here. And so I would propose that at our next meeting, subject to this discussion and any feedback that we hear over the next week, this board act to make a public statement that we support discussion of consolidation, redistricting. So how does that strike the board? Superintendent, if you have any comments on that?
Well, I mean, I think all of this relates to school funding, right? I mean, I agree with you. In my short time in Vermont, I agree that there's fundamental funding issues and I think the board would be wise to make a statement.
Dr. Clark, you and I had communicated a couple of weeks ago about redistricting and just approaching other surrounding communities to get their openness and where they were at on redistricting. Do you mind just sharing your impression for what you heard from other surrounding communities so that we can think about that between now and our next meeting when putting a statement together?
Yeah, I mean, I know no other way than to be honest, and that is that there's not a lot of take from other area districts on the idea of redistricting. In fact, it's discussions that when I send an email, it's hey, give me a call back. People don't even respond in writing. I don't think there's a like for it, and I think because it's a very politically charged thing. People are romantic about their school districts. They like rooting for the logo on the side of their football helmet, and when they have the impression that districts are going to merge, that scares them. So there's not a big taste for it, but that doesn't mean that it's not a profitability.
Maybe I'll just lay my my impression is that Vermonters are stronger together, and I don't understand why we're not, or why we're so afraid of moving, moving forward. It's gonna be challenging. And the short-term effects and benefits are not clear, but the long-term effects of having larger districts, more efficient districts, more highly resourced districts, just seems to me like the right thing to support. And it would be different from, like you were saying, like all the other school districts in Chittenden County. Burlington School District put out a Facebook post saying we're against it, and I'm pretty sure that CVU and Essex have also come out against it in various forms. So it would be us staking a position that said that we're ready to, talk about what the future needs to look like.
Most people are reluctant to accept change. It's just human nature, but this is something, when I heard, if I'm wrong, please correct me, that we have more school districts in Vermont than California does. That's ridiculous if that's true. If you can get better results with better saving or, spending less money per pupil, why not? There's gonna be some growing pains, but again, if we're looking long term, that's the future. It's all over the districts.
Is there any other board comment on the concept of next week acting to make a statement about redistricting?
Fully in support of that activity.
Okay. All right, the next item on our agenda is a second reading of policy G8, which is a legally mandated policy regarding selection of library material. And we read it last meeting. So this time we are not going to read it out loud again. Is there any board comment on selection of library materials, or is there any superintendent comment on this?
No, there's a quality team that worked on it, and I trust their professional judgment.
Okay. All right, well, that will be our second reading of it. It is present in the package or the documents for this school board meeting. The next item on our agenda is a first reading of a draft revision to Executive Limitation 2.1, which has to do with video surveillance and its use in schools. For the last two meetings, we have announced that we're going to do this at this meeting. Just because we wanted the community to be aware of something like a video surveillance change. And so I hope that anybody who is interested in this particular issue is here for our first reading of it. I'm going to join the meeting today and put it on my screen. Did everybody see that? It's a little small. Okay, so, Dr. Clark, would you give us some background on why we need to change the rules regarding video surveillance?
Yeah, this recommendation came from actually our safety committee, our principals, the SROs, school resource officers, because we have a very cumbersome process right now whenever principals or police need to review, video, tape, or what's not video, I suppose anymore, it's up in the cloud, but it's a very cumbersome process in which the person who wants to request it has to send an email to me and the chief of police and a few other people, the technology guys, to get approval to go look for something on a tape, as simple as, there might have been a fight in the hallway, we want to watch that, and it takes an incredible amount of time to be able to look into that. And it's frankly nothing like that I've ever encountered, and I was very curious why we did that, and found from the principals that they hate that too, that it's really, really cumbersome, and it really delays their investigations into a lot of things. So this is not something that really causes, my understanding from the story that I heard was that when we first started getting cameras, there was a small group in the community that was concerned about Big Brothers now watching our kids. That is not what this is about. Our principals have far many more things to do than sit around watching video cameras. But they would like to have access so that when something does happen, they can go find it really quickly so they can deal with the situation.
Okay, and so at our district, we're policy governance, and what that means is that we have executive limitations, which are a set of rules that about what the superintendent can't do.
Right.
And so what we're doing here is we're relaxing some of those limitations. And so based on Joe's request, this is the 2.1 executive limitation 2.1 treatment of students. And this is the text that already exists in it. It has something in it like, the superintendent shall not elicit information for which there's no need. That's an example that's not changing. And then down in 2.16 and 7, we have some revisions that were drafted with the help of our lawyers. And so I'm gonna read the entirety, or would you like to read the?
Sure.
Okay.
From the top.
From the top, so let's read the whole 2.1 treatment of students.
Oh, yeah, because okay, great. So ready for 2.1?
Yep.
Okay, 2.1, treatment of students and parents, guardians. So with respect to interactions with students and parents, guardians, or those applying to be students or parents, guardians, the superintendent shall not cause or allow conditions, procedures, or decisions that are inequitable, untimely, vague, undignified, or unnecessarily intrusive. Further, without limiting the scope of the foregoing by this enumeration, the superintendent shall not elicit information for which there is no need. 2.1, fail to solicit appropriate input or obtain necessary information to fulfill the district's ends policy or comply with the district's policy limitations. 2.1, use methods of collecting, reviewing, transmitting, or storing student family information that fail to protect against improper access to the material elicited. 2.14, fail to operate facilities with appropriate accessibility and privacy. 2.15, fail to establish with students and parents, guardians, a clear understanding of what may and what may not be expected from the district. So 2.16, fail to limit the use of security video systems, live or recorded, to promote the safety, security, and order of the district. And as evidence that a student, staff member, or other person has engaged in behavior that violates the law, district policy, or school rules. 2.17, fail to ensure that video access is a role restricted to authorized administrators and security personnel, except that transportation video recordings may also be viewable by the director of operations, the transportation manager. B, logged and auditable pursuant to the security cameras E2 policy. C, prohibited in areas where there is a reasonable expectation of privacy, e.g. restrooms, locker rooms, and D, prohibited for the purpose of routine staff performance monitoring or evaluation. 2.18, fail to inform students and parents, guardians of this policy or to provide a way to be heard for persons who believe they have not been afforded protections under this policy.
So the changes that are being requested are visible by comparing this to the version of the policy that's currently on our website. And also they're visible here through the, it shows what we deleted on the side here and what we added in the color, here. Is there any board comment on this?
One question I would have is how does this align with other school districts? Do you know? I mean, you maybe have mentioned that.
In every school district that I've ever worked, as an administrator, as an administrator, had access to cameras anytime I
Yeah.
needed to.
At Essex, we do, I don't, administrators do.
Right.
Yeah. You can.
So
you can-
even in Vermont, there's more.
Oh, and, there's a question.
The only district I've been in.
Yeah,
So. yeah,
This is the only district that
Yeah.
you've been really.
I've been a principal in two school districts and a third of district. And in all three, I could just look at the video. It was incredibly.
yeah, it makes, they can discipline,
Okay.
it can happen
Right
really
away.
quickly. You
Okay.
can-
I find myself asking often, is this a Vermont thing or a South Burlington thing?
It's a-
And this is a South.
It's an
Burlington
SB,
thing.
for sure.
You guys, that's good to know.
Yeah, I had phone access to mine.
The layers of complexity.
Michelle, I was thinking about that,
Like in your time on the board, right?
this to me, when we did this a couple of years ago, I don't remember all these restrictions. I don't know, maybe I got confused because I'm just assuming because in Essex, admin can do it, like we trust their professional.
My understanding is they actually lessened the restrictions a few years ago. I don't know if you were on the board at that point or not, but it was stricter than this and it's still too strict.
Yeah, I think it was trying to lessen it, and I thought, it just wasn't, I think,
Miss the mark still.
And the specific request to our lawyers when they revised this was make this as strict as the law requires and no stricter.
right,
But that's also why we have been announcing it at every school board meeting for the last two school board meetings. Is to let people know, hey, whoever it was that was interested in this, we are only gonna be as strict as the law. We're not gonna be more strict than the law.
right, no, and this to me, this is how Essex operates,
Okay,
so.
that's good to know.
My only question is if this change actually goes far enough towards what we want. I mean, it seems like we all probably support giving administration access to the cameras. Like, does this actually go as far as we want to? If these are limitations, do we actually give Dr. Clark and his team more resources if we just simply remove these limitations?
So I have two thoughts about that. First of all, if we totally remove these, it might be a
Just
little
those two.
weird,
Not all.
but the law would still protect people,
Right.
you know? Now, in recent history, we have passed a policy 2.9, treatment of around, I don't remember, but anyway, we passed something that reinforced a First Amendment protection that staff has anyway. And so it's kind of 2.9, yeah. So it might be a little weird for us to remove this. And also our lawyer wrote this being instructed to make it as restricted as little restrictive as possible based on the law. If you're interested, I could ask the lawyer before our second reading to revise this and check if it can be made any less restrictive. If board members are interested in that.
I don't want to draw this out unnecessarily, but it just seems to me that every limitation is a chance to be to limit, right, what Dr. Clark and his team can do. And if our goal here is to give him what seems to be a very standard access, including in adjacent districts, why not just remove the limitation entirely, where we would still then have the law that we would still be accountable to, but we don't muddy the waters with these additional layers of limitations that have to be referenced.
Yeah, I would only say that, we've talked about at the retreat, and I think hopefully we'll talk about more. I do think the board needs to at some point revisit the ends policies and the executive limitations. And I would prefer that you guys do all of that at once. This is a nice Band-Aid to get us to that point. This will give us everything that we need without throwing it out. And then in that bigger process, let's decide what you decide what you want to do. Yeah, okay, give it a recommendation.
Great, well, then that concludes our first reading of the video surveillance draft revision to executive limitation 2.1. So at this point, do we want to take a quick break before we launch into the monitoring report?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a 3-minute break. Be back here at 7:47.
So does this need to take it?
I.
I hope it doesn't. Good. So the next item on the agenda is an action item. It's the fiscal year 2027 announced tuition. Joe, could you walk us through this?
Yes, I can. The announced tuition is just, it's an annual, recommendation that the superintendent makes, to the board about what tuition we charge to students who are tuitioned into our district. And that rate is, going up slightly, $22,935 for secondary students and $23,900 for elementary students. And the board is required annually to approve this by January 15th.
So Joe, can I ask a question?
Yep.
What is it currently? So if it's going up to 22,935 and 23,900, what is that coming up from?
That I can not answer, but I think.
I can look it up right now.
Yep.
Okay,
Monica will. Yeah.
I just tried to look it up and didn't see it right away.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, there's state guidelines that you have to follow. It's a formula, you put that in, and this is what we come up with for our district.
So. I think the way that we do the action items is that we. Propose the motion, and then during the discussion period of the motion, that's where we welcome public comment, is that right? So, okay, so I would. Do you want me to wait until you hear what the difference is?
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. And Joe, I guess the other question would be if that number would change, because this is based on the preliminary budget from the school meeting. So if that changes, if we do go down to say a 0%, let's just say hypothetically, would that impact those tuition rates?
No, once the board votes on that, that's what it is for the year.
Right,
And
no.
then-
But what I'm saying is like, would those numbers possibly change? Because this is based on a 3.4%. So my question would be.
No, I'm not being clear, I'm sorry. The tuition rate is set by a formula by the state of Vermont. It has nothing to do with what our budget is. It's just a matter of, Moncote, the functions.
Last year's tuition rate for elementary was $20,739, and for secondary students, it was $21,734. And the state sets the increase every year. This information is available on the Agency of Education website.
The state sets the increase. Okay, because I was just reading this and it says the rates were calculated based on the budget prepared by the administration for the January 7th school board meeting. So my assumption would have been that that was based on the 3.4% increase that we had provided to you. And you used those numbers to calculate
No,
this.
it's.
Okay, so I was just.
So you get information from the state,
Okay.
Yeah,
you do
that's
the
all right, I
math,
get it.
which is
Okay.
1 + 2, and then give it to us to
Yeah, then
approve.
the next
Yeah,
sentence,
it's-
the next sentence says calculations follow state guidelines that uses to.
Yeah.
Okay.
What-
I'm just curious.
The state, that's district are told,
Okay.
says, I mean, we don't make this decision.
Would the board like me to send the table from the state's last year?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I'll send it
We
to
have
you.
nothing to do with it.
Thank you.
And I beg the mercy of the court, there's been so much going on. This is the line I put this together. It's an annual thing, and this is.
But this is standard, this is not really anything, we can't change that.
We have to vote on
Yeah, we should not.
Well, you're right.
That's
it, you
ridiculous.
know, like,
What we do, right?
right.
Yeah.
So let's just do it.
Well, no, we're acknowledging it, is what you're doing. That the superintendent's going to accept that, this is good for the district, you want people to come here and pay this tuition. So that's why the schools all go to, the superintendent and the principals all go to the schools with no high schools. You want kids to come here. So it's a big push every spring to do that.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2027 tuition rates as presented in this document.
So. Yeah, second.
Michelle moves, Laura seconds. Any discussion? And this is an action item, so we will be accepting public comment on this topic. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Fine.
Well, no, we can take a discussion.
One last question. So, sorry, just because I'm looking at it and I was able to pull it up online. So in online, what I could see is 24-25 recommended tuition for out of district students was $20,739 for K through 6. And now we're looking at K through 5. So was there a reason that changed?
I can't answer that.
Okay, that's
Any
fine.
kind of,
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, be fine. I mean,
Sorry, I'm just curious. Just asking.
That's good, good discussion. I
Yep.
think it's your responsibility as an elected representative to ask questions. So we've just had discussion. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is monitoring report 1.2 academic proficiency. So this is part of our governance structure that we have imposed on ourselves here in South Burlington called policy governance. We make sure that the superintendent is doing a good job through the use of monitoring reports that are split out over the year. And the first one that we have this year is a very important one. It is academic proficiency. So Joe, take it away.
Okay, and I have it on the screen and I did that without any extra. So, good for me. Approved. I'm thinking you questioned your vote last month. So the policy being monitored is academic proficiency. And what you see first in part one is what the actual policy says. And you can read that, and when you read it, you'll come to, I think, my conclusion and my superintendent's interpretation is that there are really two parts to this policy. And it is, it really comes down to opportunity and proficiency, right? So because it talks about students actively participating in a full and enriching academic experience. And then it also talks about them demonstrating proficiency within those courses that they take. So I see it as, my interpretation is that we're going to be in compliance when we show that we do provide the opportunities to our kids and that our kids do well. So that is my interpretation. And then I have component definitions and success criteria. So for opportunity, I talk about access and participation across the disciplines. That the access is real, that it's not just in a catalog somewhere, that we actually are providing the opportunities that we say that we are to our students. That we schedule appropriately, that we provide staffing and time for the courses that we say that we're going to offer our kids. And then the next part is proficiency, and that is, are our kids learning those things that we say that they should learn, which are content knowledge aligned to the standards and curriculum, reading comprehension, writing well, communicating with active listening and evidence-based responses, creative and effective expression, technology, mixed media and instrumentation use, problem solving with accuracy, and us using valid measures over time. And I think what you'll find as when I get to the conclusion of my report, I will repeat again my interest in the board taking the time to redo the ends policies, because I think this one is a little more nebulous than what we would like to be able to actually measure how our kids are doing with what we're expecting them to do. So I take you next to the PowerPoint presentation where we will look at these items in more detail. Okay, monitoring report. So again, here is the very first slide is the verbatim policy, and I highlighted participating in a full and enriching academic experience and demonstrating proficiency within the courses. And then it lists the courses that they should demonstrate proficiency in. So again, as I read this, the policy, to me, it was two things that we need to do. We need to make sure that we're providing opportunity for kids. And we really struggled as we had discussions internally about this whole idea of proficiency. Proficiency is not necessarily the best word, because not all of the assessments we give to students measures proficiency. What we're really looking at, for lack of a better word, is performance. Are our students doing well in the areas that, or the assessments we give them to be able to show that they are doing well? And we also, I know I've heard the board talk about, you're very interested in state and national assessments, more so than maybe local assessments. So when we talk about opportunity, again, that is, are we providing our kids with opportunities for this full and enriching academic experience? And I think we're doing very well here. We, when you look at grades K through 5, we do have a very robust academic program. We have language and literacy and math at all of our grade levels. Now, science and social studies is limited in this district. I think there are reasons for that, and the reasons I think focus really on language and literacy and mathematics. That when you get to science and social studies, you need to be able to read to learn those things. And first you have to learn to read, and then you read to learn. And so more time is spent with language and literacy and mathematics than it is with science and social studies. We do art with our kids. We have technology for our elementary kids. We have health and wellness, and participation is built in. This is not, elementary kids don't have the ability to say, nah, I don't want to do language class or literacy class. It's built into the programs. It's very robust. It's a typical elementary program, and it's strong. In 6 to 8, grades 6 to 8, we expand those opportunities. We have, again, core academic blocks in literacy, math, science, and social studies. So they do start to get more science and social studies at this grade. They have art and design pathways. They have technology. They do have world language at the middle school, Spanish and French. Health and PE. And they have academic teams there that work together with these subjects, and also exploratory cycles to look at look at those arts and music kind of activities to see, where they might have an interest. How do we ensure access is real at grades to K to 8? It's not just something that we talk about. Well, we make sure that kids are scheduled properly. We make sure that we staff properly. We provide resources. We monitor their participation, and we have continuity across transitions. We make sure that when our kids go from the elementary building to the middle school, that they're following a logical path, and that anything expands when we get them up to high school. Now, when you talk about the high school offers a huge range of academic opportunities for our kids in the humanities, in math and science, in social sciences, in art, design, world language, health and wellness, technology. Quite honestly, I've not been in a place that has offered as many opportunities to high school students as this very district does. Students can take STEM programming, they have Earth and space systems, living systems, advanced science options, including AP biology, chemistry, physics, environmental science. We have zoology, we have astronomy. We have so many different opportunities. They have kids have chances for authentic research. They have opportunities for technology and career tech. I would say that career tech, although there are robust opportunities for kids, I think there's not enough opportunities. Frankly, about half of our kids who apply to be in a career tech program are turned down for the career tech program just because of space. Our kids go to Burlington and Essex for career tech, and there's just not enough space. We have more students in career tech at Essex than any other district that sends kids there, and it's still not enough for us. Again, half our kids get turned down. Tons of humanities programs, literacy, communication. We have electives that are just amazing, the spectrum of electives. We have more AP classes than any place I've ever worked. Just all kinds of programs for kids at the high school. Visual art and design, music and theater, media tech, health and wellness. Again, it's amazing to walk through there. When we talk about world languages, right? Spanish, French, German, and Latin at the high school. There was Japanese at the high school. That's just, it's unbelievable the amount of opportunities our kids have. And then there's lots of flexible pathways for our kids there too. They can do dual enrollment and early college work. They can do the Vermont Virtual Learning Cooperative. They have the Tech Center programs. Again, we don't have enough kids who are permitted into those programs, but we do have those opportunities exist.
And you're gonna be presenting about the career stuff later in the month.
Yeah, actually, Pat Burke will present about our career tech program availability, I think next week. Yeah. So when we're talking about opportunity, our kids have tons of opportunities, but let's go next to performance, right? Because having opportunities is one thing, and kids doing well in those areas is another thing. So the performance, I think there were 8 different strands under, well, what was called proficiency in the ends policy. I'm using the term performance just because not everything we assess kids on is a proficiency test. But when we're talking about performance, the first group of stuff I want to talk about are items 1, 2, 3, and 7 in that list. Strong content knowledge consistent with state approved standards and district approved curriculum. To me, mainly that's math and literacy and reading. It's comprehending, interpreting, and evaluating a wide range of written material resources. Again, that's reading. Writing in a clear, concise, and organized manner. Again, that goes directly to our literacy program. Effectively solves, and this is where I think that there's some nebulousness in the board policy, because it says we're gonna make sure that our kids effectively solve problems. And to me, there's a bit of a stretch. How do we know if our kids are effectively solving problems?
Well, it's because they're attending to precision.
Yeah, it's exactly right. They strive to try. So it's a difficult, it's just nebulous, right? But when I look at these performance measures, we have several different ways that we do measure them. The first is local measures. And when you look at some of the local measures I've had prepared for you, as you can see, just the credits are, right? Our students, they have an average of, 25.78 credits they earn. This is the class of 2025, right? They almost earned 26 credits. You only need 20 to graduate. They're earning about 26 credits. The highest student earned almost 32 credits, the lowest 17.5. So they're earning credits. They're taking the classes, and that means they're passing classes. 100.
Sorry, Joe, how many to graduate? I didn't say that.
Say it again.
How many do they need to graduate?
20.
Okay.
20. 20's right. Is that? I'm looking at Monica because she's been here long. I think it's 20. I think other places are, well, we're lower than most.
Most places are 24.
I think so. 20-ish.
Either way, the average is above our line by a substantial
Yep,
margin.
absolutely.
Kids are filling their
Taking a lot more
schedules all
classes.
the way through senior year instead of.
So when you look at this year's class, students on track to graduate, 182 students are currently on track to graduate. That's 96% of our students are on track to graduate. They're passing the courses that they're taking here at the local level. When you look at the course pass rate indicator, right? These are the percent of students failing one class. In ninth grade, 8% of our ninth graders in 24-25 failed one course. 9% of sophomores, 12% of juniors, only 4% of our seniors failed one course. Again, so they're except for maybe the juniors, they're successful in the courses that they're taking as a local indicator. But again, those are all controlled by us, right? So it's hard to get any kind of knowledge about what does that really mean. So you hear things like rate inflation or what does that really mean? So then you start to look at state measures. When you look at state measures, here's the VTCAP scores, proficiency, district versus state. This is the, you can see the grade levels and how they did. I know you can't see it, but the screen keeps getting in my way, so I can't read it. This is really impressive. Yeah. So you can see where our kids compare to the rest of the kids in Vermont. And this is proficiency in math, right? For kids in 2025. But you look at the 3-year trend, right? So we're always above the state, but we haven't really improved much in those 3 years, right? Here's the ELA, same story. We do well compared to the rest of Vermont. You look at our trend, we haven't really changed much. So let's look at national measures. What do we find out when we look at some national measures? So this is SAT performance. Okay, SAT is a national test. Now, you should know that when you talk about the SAT, just look at it with a lot of with many grains of salt, because there are some places where every student is required to take an SAT. There are other places where it's just a It's taken at a kid's will. In South Burlington, our kids are not required to take the SAT. However, we do pay for them to take the SAT one time. And about half of our kids take the SAT. The more students that take an SAT, the lower your scores generally are, right? Because kids that are going to college to take the SAT, they're generally going to score higher. If we want everybody to take the SAT, that naturally brings the score down. But how do we do compared to the country? Like we do with compared to the state, we're typically higher than the rest of the country in our SAT scores. This is 2025. This was 2024 kids. This is 2025 kids. Again, we do better on the overall. We do better in reading, writing. We do better in math than the country. You look at the essay. This is a trend over those years. This is just a written version of the picture you just saw.
And this is showing the longitudinal data across time.
Yeah, for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years of longitudinal data. PSAT, okay, so this is a, sophomores typically take the PSAT, and again, our sophomores, 186 kids took the test, and on average, we score better than the national. So that was 2023. This is 2024. Again, yeah, I mean, still, we're above. You can almost count that when we give our kids tests, we're gonna score better than the rest of Vermont, and we're gonna score better than the national. But I'm gonna give you a but a little later, right? October 2025, same thing, kids do higher than the national. So here's another national screener that we just started. It's the STAR assessments. Now, these are nationally normed screeners for ELA and math. They're standardized assessments. And they do standardize at a national level for every other school district that uses STAR. Not every school district uses STAR. There are other screeners. And we use STAR, but we only just started using STAR, like within the last year or so. So we do not have a lot of longitudinal data when you talk about STAR. In fact, we started implementing STAR in the spring of 2025, so we do not have a ton of data, but probably not going to be surprised. When you look at our literacy scores, a measure of foundational reading skills, phonemic awareness, phonics, alphabetic principle, print concepts. How do our kids do? Well, they do better than the national, right? You can see that this key is going to stay the same on every slide. The red is the 0 to the 9th percentile, the orange is 10 to 24, etc. And so you want kids in green, light blue, and dark blue.
What does that mean, no better than the national? I'm curious how you're interpreting this.
This is all first graders who took the early literacy test in the fall of 2025. 11% of our kids were in the 90th percentile or better. 18% of our kids were in the 75th to 89th percentile. 27% of our kids were in the 50th to 74th percentile. So 27, 38, 48, 56% of our kids were above the 15th percent.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right, so when I look at this, what I actually see is the national distribution more or less, right? So putting us like right at the national would have been my interpretation here.
yeah,
Plus or minus a few.
yeah, slightly
Yeah,
above
6%.
national, right? This is grade 2 early literacy, fall 2025. Now, again, we do early literacy in grade 1 and grade 2. Grade 3, 4, 5, we do reading. So this is actual reading performance, vocabulary, word knowledge, comprehension of text. So this is the STAR reading by grade. Please note that the STAR reading was not given to, so when you look at the far right and you see 100% of our students were in the red in that understand that was not the general population of our students. Those are English learner students who are learning English for the first time, taking our reading test in English.
And are the star ratings adjusted for socioeconomic?
They are not.
demographic?
No, they're not.
And what is the benchmark? It says benchmark, what does that mean?
I'm gonna
Oopsie.
defer to my wiser friends in the back to talk about benchmark. Nicole, are you?
It's like grade level, right?
As we're talking about the national percentile, the benchmark for star right now is set at 40%.
So this is, so 43% for second graders means that 43% are below the 40th percentile.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this is grade 3, fall 2025.
So, I'm sorry to interrupt you, just to go back to the, right, so here, so Michelle, what you were pointing out is that in fourth grade, 46% were below the benchmark, and the benchmark is 40%, so that's 6 points more than what we would want. That's, or like, would you just clarify what you were noticing about the numbers here?
What the benchmark means, right? Benchmark could mean a proficient cut score, it could mean a screening cut score for like
Well, sure, but
identifying
Explain it
literacy.
to me like a five. If you don't,
Well,
I
that,
mean,
well,
just
they,
explain your
okay, so
understanding.
the answer to the question was that the benchmark is the 40th percentile. So anything in red is a student that's below the 40th percentile using the STAR national sample. That's all that means. So, I mean, my observation about this is that there's room to grow in the early grades, right? Like, I would look at this and I would say, if I were gonna put some resources somewhere, thinking about the importance of foundational literacy, that might be one place I would be looking at.
Yeah, you look at our reading scores, they do much better as they get into the English grades.
Michelle, is it your interpretation, if we're looking at grades, grades 2, 3, and 4 here at 43, 41, and 46, those are roughly. That's roughly matching the national distribution.
That was my observation in when it was showing the numbers of students in the quintiles.
So for those,
Because it really looked like the national distribution that would underlie that determination of 50th percentile, 75th, so on and so.
at least for those 3 grades, and then we sort of move past it.
It gets
And
better
and
on the
then we
grades,
excel
yeah,
the
yeah,
grades, but
exactly,
For those
according
3
to
grades,
this
nationally average,
Yeah.
give or take.
Right,
But the so the benchmark is not any sort of average, it's just. Is it arbitrarily chosen?
it's the 40th percentile, which to me is arbitrary.
That's odd, but
That is weird.
It's arbitrary.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a reason.
I wouldn't attach
Yeah,
too
let's
much meaning
see.
to
Got
it, the pattern is what's most important, I think.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
It's you. So this is one screener session. Screeners are designed so that teachers can adjust their instruction. So you're looking at these numbers, the 43, 41, 46, and teachers are looking at those numbers with their individual kids to figure out what they can do differently. They'll take another screener right now, is the second screener. Then there'll be another screener before school gets out. And really, it's looking at the screeners over time that gives you an idea of like, where are there things we need to change? We would never make decisions just on one for a group, but we would for individual students.
Yeah, and I thank you for pointing out, and also we just started doing STAR, right? So this is the first time I guess what I'm suggesting is there's not a whole lot you're getting out of this other than. Our.
We're
kids
beginning to
do.
get a baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year's our baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that's a really good point. These are, it's great that we get to see this and understand but these tests are for you.
Right,
They're
right,
not-
for teachers.
They're not
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
for
I
us, so
use this all the
it's.
time. We've been doing this for a number of years.
So this will be more meaningful in years to come as we have a larger sample.
Once you
Right,
can
yeah.
see, and then you
Yeah.
can differentiate based on this. I find it really helpful.
Yeah, and I don't know how these got implemented because I wasn't here, but I know that in other school districts, they have been doing it for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you have this massive data set. You can really
Yeah.
dig into all the patterns and adjust a lot of things system wise. So right now, these really just help with individual kids, but we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep,
That's good.
thank you. All right, so again, these are the screener scores, grade 3, fall 2025. For reading. Grade 4. Reading, fall. Grade 5, reading, fall. Grade 6, reading, fall. Again, these are screener scores, and our kids are doing better than the average on a screener. Grade 7, reading in the fall. Grade 7, so this is a grade 7 took the screener in the spring. Right, so that's this year's 8th grade. So you can see how our kids did as 7th graders in the spring compared to 8th grade in the fall. These are the same, this is the same cohort of kids. So this group of 7th graders is this group of 8th graders. You can see-
Sorry, Joe, real quick, that blue dot,
Yeah,
that's your, what is that? That's your
yeah, that's the average.
average,
Yeah.
okay.
So the losses from, losses, it's gone down. From the green and the light blue, but it's jumped in the.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's enough for this to mean a whole lot.
No, so it's.
Yeah.
I think big picture is the most important.
Mhm. Yeah.
Interpreting small movements of an interim assessment
Yeah.
is pretty risky.
So there's 7th grade, spring, 8th grade, fall, that's the same for the kids.
The bins are pretty weird. Like 10, 15, 25, 15, 10. Like, I mean, like the width of the bins is weird.
That is the number of students, right? And then you see the percentage of students. So that'll give you count those up and that'll tell you how many kids took it. In 5th grade, 8th
No, I
grade.
mean, like,
10 or in the 24th, that's what you mean.
I mean, like the binning of, you're putting 10% of students and then 15% of students. And then 25%
Oh, I
of
see.
students.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's not me doing that, that's starting that.
I think, you're right, it's probably to show you more detail of the ends.
Well, it kind of,
Well, that's the curve,
at the
right?
bottom and the top.
Yeah, the bottom, type of 10, the middle, the other.
Yeah. This now the gas distribution, sure.
All right, 8th grade, spring of 2025. 9th grade, fall of 2025. So that's the same cohort of kids. The yellow goes way down. Okay. All right, so this is other information about STAR reading. 1,460 kids took one or more STAR reading assessments, and 76% of them were at or above the minimum district benchmark proficiency level. And 65% of them were above the proficiency benchmark on the reading state test.
So
Yeah.
the 65.8%, that's a predictive number
Mhm.
for how you're gonna do on the BT cap when you take it. So STAR has 40-page manual explaining how they do it. That I can't regurgitate right now, but when you look at that 65.8%, that's what it's measuring. So there are two different things. One is saying, how are you doing compared to percent, right, to the nation? And then the other is saying, how do we think you're gonna do when you take the BT cap in the spring?
Thank you.
So which one is the national one?
The
75.9.
75.9. The one that's called a district benchmark is actually nationally normed, which is confusing. And the one that says state benchmark is the one that's aligned with BT cap.
Predictive.
How do you think that prediction aligns with what you saw? That looks high to me. Is that what you think?
You should say.
No, I'm thinking of, because you have 2025.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. By looking at this, our reading proficiency district benchmark.
And the key thing there, when it shows different proficiencies at different levels, is that means that it's not that these kids are getting better at reading, it's that compared to their peers nationally, our 2nd graders, our 8th graders do better than our 2nd graders.
And it's not proficient, right? There's, the word proficient doesn't apply here, which is what's confusing. Right?
And that's what the cost is.
Right.
Yeah, because you're using this as a screening.
Right, and there's.
So you're really focused on about 40%. Those are the kids you care about when you're looking at this. Not that you don't care about all kids, but the information you're getting is.
Teams and schools coming together and the students who's the screener, we need to adjust what we're doing for it. Absolutely.
Ultimately, at the end of it, the idea is that, so it feels a little bit. This is information that I'm not sure it's great information to share because it's really better when we know that people are making decisions. So that's why we have that. Again, it goes back to what we were saying, is it's really about how the teachers are teaching and how we look at the areas that they're struggling in. You know, we just introduced CPLA with, you know, for the 2 years ago, we did CPLA, and so we're focusing on a lot of the reading pieces. We're getting better, and hopefully that's what our scores will end up showing, but right now it's too soon, because between STAR and between CPLA, we have a lot of time in your adults to have.
Right.
It's not on historical perspective.
Thank you. All right, so then we move to math. So grade 1 math in fall of 2025. Grade 2 math. We're gonna see our kids do not perform well in math as they did reading. So putting it in grade 3, right? Grade 3 math. It's better. Grade 4 math, it's better. Grade 5 math. Wow. Grade 6 math. Grade 7 math. It's grade 7 in the spring of 2025. Grade 8 in the fall of 2025. These same cohort kids. Right? Spring of 2025, fall of 2025.
And it's that 90th percentile that really. We're almost 50%.
Spring of 2025 for grade 9. Take it. Don't. I'm behind the slide. So fall 2025, spring 2025. Okay. 9th grade. All right, so that's your math. All right. So again, there's 8 components in what I consider like the proficiency part of this ends report, and we just talked about 4 of them, which were combined literacy, reading, and math. There are other ones that are harder to judge, right? Number 4, actively listening and responding with evidence to ideas, concepts, and opinions, expressing themselves creatively and effectively in a variety of forms. So that's the ends. So my question to the board, my rhetorical question is, how do I judge how our kids are expressing themselves creatively and effectively in a variety of forms? There's not a test, right? So I looked at what are we giving our kids, right? In K through 8, our kids have art, they have general music, they have band and chorus. They do have the opportunity to participate in those things that allow them to express themselves creatively, to actively listen, to respond. Right? In the high school, we have a really robust schedule at the high school. At the high school, you can see there's a lot of art and creative kinds of things. Art and band, and choir, design, with fashion design, graphic design, we have an improv class, right? All of these things that we offer for our high school kids, painting, photography, pottery. School of Rock, the physics of sound and music, that sounds like from class. And we also have extracurricular activities, right? We don't just teach kids in the classroom, we teach them on the field and on the stage and in the court. So we have drama and theater, and art club and yearbook at the high school and at Tuttle. The high school, we also have speech and debate club, journalism club, book club, student council, Dungeons and Dragons, right? Expression, culture and geography club. The next thing of performance is using technology, mixed media, and instrumentation is appropriate. Again, how do we measure whether our kids are performing well? I don't know. I struggle with it. But I found the courses that we have that are kind of this kind of thing: technology, mixed media, photography, engineering, art, fashion design, American history through film, computer science. And the numbers are the number of kids in those programs who are taking those classes. So you can see a lot of kids who are getting a lot of instruction in those kinds of things. I also want to draw your attention to the to the right side, when you're looking at auto tech, aviation tech. Look at those numbers.
That's shocking.
Because we don't have enough seats in the CTE programs, right?
So why those numbers are so low, because.
Yep, it's not for lack of desire,
Very
it's lack of
competitive.
opportunity. Yep,
Is that due to limited space at the facilities?
yes.
Because we don't even have a facility.
Right, so we have to, and we share that.
It's
that
a
share
Essex
across
or
other districts.
Burlington for different programs.
So there's limited space there, we
Limited
only have
space.
so many seats that we can.
It's shocking how many people are, if you go back a slide even. One more. Like, or, or sure, like two, so the one that had the, like, it's amazing that we have 82. I mean, I'm not, like.
Yeah.
We've got 89 people in photography and one person in AutoCAD.
Well, there could be, I don't know who gets priorities, like Essex students get priority for the auto tech is, the automotive is really.
And this is, and again, photography is a course, right? So it's a teacher and you can take the course.
And we get.
Well, do you have PLPs here, like personalized learning plans, like the Agency of Education, would you have that? So that would be a way that kids are improving, right?
Yep,
So
so
you
you
have-
do get their own
So
field.
so as teachers, we're asked, okay, find the performance.
Yeah.
Indicators, or I can't even, this is
Right.
my time of night, and then you put them on the PLPs and the Agency of Ed, this is like the portrait of a graduate,
And,
so.
right,
that's how
and my
it's-
argument, as you guys talk about, are we in favor or not of redistricting? To me, a bigger question is, what can we do with career tech? We need more career tech opportunities. That's where the state, in my opinion, should be putting some more resources, because we just don't have them.
I can tell you.
And that's where jobs are.
With the tech budget and the high school and the district budget, the tech budget passes every year without question. Nobody
So
questions it.
here's the next one in performance, using technology, mixed media, and instrumentation. We talked about these. These are all the classes kids take. Right? And the extracurriculars that we have, an awesome robotics club, esports yearbook, et cetera. Just have the opportunity to do a lot of things here. And that's the end of the slideshow. So let me take, again, we're still doing this. We are still doing the monitoring report. So I went over the reporting outcomes with you. And then we get to the point where I need to, as a superintendent, evaluate where we are on these things. And so when we talk about access and participation across discipline, I see proficient as like the standard. You need to really be outstanding to be advanced. We absolutely, in my opinion, are proficient with access and participation, and that we give real access to our kids. They absolutely have opportunities here, our kids do, in almost all of those things. When you talk about proficiency, when you look at us compared to the state and national, we do well. We do well compared to the state and national in reading and all these things, content knowledge and writing and communication, creative and effective expression, just based on the number of classes and the different classes I see. That one, I argue that we're advanced. I've never seen the amount of opportunities for high school kids that we have here. Technology, problem solving, use of valid measures over time. I give us there approaching simply because we're new with the STAR, right? We're implementing some things for the first time. We're not there yet. I think we need to keep on that path. So when I look at our overall compliance for academic proficiency, I would say that we're proficient. I think we're proficient compliance. But when I talked about there's going to be a but later, the executive summary, you can read this, but what I really talk about in the executive summary is since my time here, what I've heard a lot in my pre-Q meetings and questions is that we can do better. I think there's an expectation here, I think among the community, among the board that. Yeah, of course, we're going to score better in the state and nationally. We're a more affluent community. We should be scoring better, but is better enough? Is above the state average enough? So, I think that we need to increase our standards for what we expect, and I think that would be something that should come through a board ends policy. And when I talk about how we're going to address the weaknesses, I think first of all, we need to stick with STARS, our universal screener. We need to just give us time to use this so we can really analyze how our kids are doing and use that to improve our instruction. I do believe that we need to complete a district curriculum and instruction audit to find out where are we lacking in areas and where are we lacking as with instructional practice. Item 3 is tied to that. I think we should commit to a research-based instructional framework. I don't believe we have that in place. I hear things like some of our elementary kids are getting different math programs at different buildings. I think we need to have an instructional framework. We were a Marzano district where I came from, and if you implement it with fidelity and you train staff and people speak the same language, then I think it makes it makes it easier to provide professional development, and it really just clarifies what we're going to be teaching and how we're going to be teaching. That's not to take away teacher academic freedom. Teachers should have the ability to use a variety of instructional methods, but there is a science behind instruction, and I think we need to find a research-based instructional framework that actually works. We need to strengthen our system for using valid measures over time. We have trend evidence, but that's not enough. And the last one is to respond to community expectations and avoid above average isn't enough, which is nebulous to me. I think, again, I stated it here in what my plan is that I think the board needs updated ends adopted by you that more clearly define expectations. When we look at this academic proficiency policy and 4 of the 8 things that we're looking at, I can't even find a measure for, what are, other than, I think we're doing good.
Right.
And I don't think I think we need to be more clear. I think it needs to be narrower and more clear about what our expectations are for our kids.
Our aspirations and expectations don't have to reside exclusively in, or even in an ends policy. They can exist in our strategic plan. They can exist, or they can be in our, more general statements. But I agree that we need something at the same time. Not everything is measurable that we care about, right? And I would hope, and I'm sure that you're all doing this, but I guess speaking for myself, I want folks to understand that, when I talk about the value of having these outcome measures, because I do believe in them, I think they're important, but that's what they're important for outcome measures. So the criticisms that, while we don't want to distill, all meaning into a single score, and we don't want to spend all of our time working on so-called bubble kids, right? Where you're trying to get the kid over the proficient line, because that makes it look like all of that game playing. That is not why those assessments are there. They're there so that we can get those macro snapshots, particularly over time, whether or not we're serving all students well. And so when I look at any presentation about assessment results, what I always want to know is, what are we not seeing there, right? We don't want to say, oh, we want, next year we want 60% proficient because this year we were 55. Setting that those are arbitrary and they're not useful, they're not helpful. But what I also want to know is those students that are not proficient, how are they being supported? How is that a factor over time in how we will see those outcomes improve
the way we expect them to see, while acknowledging that they're not the most important thing, but they are one point of information that gives us context about whether or not we're achieving the goals that we set for kids in terms of their academic proficiency.
Before you respond, Joe, would you mind, for those of us who are not educators or educational administrators, would you kind of maybe rephrase what Michelle said in what you heard? Just to, you know, kind of give us the explain like that 5 version of that.
I think what Michelle said was that, the academic measures in and of themselves are not what's important as how we respond when we find that kids are not performing well in those academic measures. Yes, we want to score well on those assessments, but more important is the question that we ask them, what do we do when kids aren't learning, and how do we respond when that's happening? I think I also heard her say that not everything that's important is measured, but you know, our ends policy suggests that it should be. We're talking about arts and those kinds of things. So maybe the ends policy, maybe those kinds of things should be taken out of that ends policy, and that should be maybe an opportunity ends policy, and then we have a performance ends policy related to those things that are more easily tested. But then also maybe we have an ends policy that's related to our interventions. What kind of interventions? Starting with tier 1, right? Do we have a strong tier 1 instructional program based on a research-based instructional framework that allows us to not have to give or put kids in that tier 2 intervention? And then when we do get in the tier 2 intervention, which is the kids that aren't successful in the main classroom, right? They need a little more extra support. Are we doing well to get them where they need to be, right?
And so I think that this would be, you know, we have hired the Vermont School Board Association to do an audit of our existing policies. It sounds like this is also something, I think what I'm hearing from you is that in order to make our schools perform better academically, it would be helpful if the board clarified our ends and our executive limitations. And it also sounds like the complexity of doing that is such that we should probably, again, consider, and this is for the future, hiring Vermont School Boards Association to take what you just said and put it into a clarified, like, you know, ends, executive limitations. And then, you know, because we don't want to run over and write something that limits you in the wrong policy. So I hear a lot of good in what you're saying, and I just want to make sure that we preserve the clarity of our governance. So
yeah, I guess if I could, again, in fifth grade language, I think we need higher expectations for all students. We need to have good ways of measuring how our kids are performing, and we need to have good ways of intervening when kids are not performing. Okay. To put those in some sort of ends policy, I think would be very helpful.
And continue with this data collection so you can measure it over time.
Yep.
And see any trends.
Yes, and also still respect all those other things, the arts.
Yep. Yes.
I would never say that's not important. That's vitally important.
Yeah.
I just don't know that, we have to measure, you know,
Right.
how we're gonna get the number of kids that score a 1 at contest. It's not important.
No, I mean, I think the way you presented it in a way is a measure, and it's an important one. It gives the visibility. These are the opportunities. These are the number of students participating. I mean, that in and of itself is important information, I think. in
and
terms of
especially would be especially meaningful longitudinally, like over time. It's like, how is photography doing? How does, you know, auto mechanics doing? How is, you know, so I think, you know, which is more data management, but that would provide meaning where there might not otherwise be meaning.
Yeah. And I guess I just want to say one thing, because I want people to understand, I do think we're doing a really, really good job. We have great professionals who really want to do great things for kids, and I think they're very skilled. I think there's leadership and guidance and structure that they're craving, and I think if we can provide that, then I think that will improve our performance. It's where our performance is, which again, we're above average, right? It's because we have good people there, but I do think we have the potential to be in that higher echelon when you're talking about us compared to the rest of the country, if we can focus on those things.
So would it be okay if I took over sharing screen? for a
Yeah,
minute?
absolutely.
I just have a,
Yes, please do.
so my understanding is that this is a relatively progressive, left-leaning institute that would not criticize public education for the purpose of criticizing public education. I feel like this is a source that is relatively positive on public education. It's the Urban Institute. And what they did is they took the NAEP, which I don't think we went through very much this time, but and they adjusted it for socioeconomic status and stuff like that. And I think that this is obviously state level, so this is not only our district, but it is distressing if you click through and find where we sit in the rankings. Vermont is actually 45th in the nation. And what I take from this, I don't view this as gospel, but what I take from this is that the question we should be asking is how much of a boost is the district giving the students above and beyond their home life, you know? And to make a tortured analogy, you know, it's like economic profit versus accounting profit. It's like if you just put money in the stock market, you know, any investment that you make, you have to compare it to what money you would make if you just put it into the stock market. And I think, so in other words, like there's just like, we have to ask ourselves, how much of a boost is the district giving to students? And I understand from what you said when we hired you as the permanent superintendent, you said, you know, give me 3 years and I think we can really do better. And I think what we're talking about when we say doing better is saying, you know, how do we compare to districts in Massachusetts? How do we compare to districts in Connecticut? And so like when I see these monitoring reports about academic proficiency, I think that in this more than any other, we should be comparing ourselves. We should identify districts that we want to be like, you know, like I'd like to see what are the star benchmarks for, I don't know, some place in Massachusetts.
This is the entire state of Vermont.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I know.
It's like you can't really.
I just think that it is
The SB's in the 45th, number 45, but the state, yeah, I know the state is, I've seen that.
You're right. I'm just saying, I think that we should identify some districts that we want to compare ourselves to, competitive districts that aren't just states, that aren't just the country. And then we should see how we do against them over time. And it's gonna take a long time. It's gonna take years.
Just there's the trends are down, right? By all metrics, for the most part, when we look at trends, at best, they're flat. The question is why? And what are we missing? Are we missing certain groups in making sure that foundational literacy and access to learning? Are we missing, what are we missing? I'm not sure that we can address these changing trends unless we understand what their source is. And that's part of the value of looking at the measures, but it's so much more than that, right? I think, I like the point that you're getting at, Seamus, is that yes, we're above average according to these measures, but our trends haven't been great and our achievement gaps are growing. And those to me are urgent matters that we can attend to as a community. Well, I mean, I'm not in the classroom, but as schools, this is the place where it happens. This is the direct access. This is where we can understand what the challenges are, where we're doing well and where kids need more support. Or our benchmarks, right? Like, are we defining proficiency incorrectly? That's a part of the problem too. We have to, or not part of the problem, but a part of fully vetting the why. Because we can have all of the AP classes on the planet and all of the arts and all of the language,
But if we're not addressing foundational skills for all students, those numbers aren't gonna change. It would be interesting to look at them by decile, and by decile, I mean just breaking down the student group into, you know, what their scores are into 10 categories, from 10th percentile to 99th percentile, and then look at their trends. And you can see, you can compare for lower performing students as measured by these assessments and higher performing students as measured by these assessments. What are are the higher performing students just climbing and climbing and climbing? Are they not? You know, like, it's more information that we can get at. And so, I just keep coming back to, we are seeing some things that are not great, right? When we look at those measures from a high level perspective as an outcome measure, not as defining children, but as an outcome measure of the success of our system, I'm not sure I'm declaring victory here.
I know we're at time, but I'm just curious, Laura, as the educator on the board and the longest serving member on the board, I'm curious, and you know, an educator in Vermont, if you have an opinion on like these trends, or what we talking about specific, our district, our state, our geography?
We've been seeing this, we've been seeing this for years, the steady decline. And no, we aren't reaching all kids. And you can see that, like I do, rely heavily on Star Reader. And it does help me differentiate if I see a reading level that's low. I mean, it's gonna be for a variety of reasons. But we are seeing this, and we are not gonna solve it here. I wish we could, but we are seeing it's nationwide and it's statewide. And as teachers, we have been sounding the alarm since before 2018. So, you can't blame this on COVID. We were headed, I mean, maybe COVID like expedited it a bit, but we were seeing this. So I know Mississippi's always held up as this example. I don't know what they did. I'm not so sure. I don't know if we would want to do what they did. But yeah, no, kids are
Policies are clever.
but I teach high school. I'm shocked that sometimes I look at the reading level, I think, okay, now this makes sense. Now I know what I need to do. But that's new. That's really new. So, yeah, it's not something that we're gonna solve. I agree with Dr. Joe, Michelle, we need to do something.
It sounds like the board mostly needs to get out of the way. In the sense of having clear ends that you can focus on.
Yes.
And so I think that that's my takeaway from this is, however we may vote on this. For where we are today, and I appreciate that you've taken a very transparent approach and, but I think that we should look at revising our ends with advice from policy governance experts, very soon.
I think it's on the plan for this year, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think, we've talked, I think we need new ends so we can do a strategic plan.
Yep.
And sooner rather than later, and I think we do, and I just want to reiterate, we have great people here, this is not because we don't have we have good people.
Right.
What we need is.
This is
To
not.
me, it's, I always, yeah, in my position.
It's not SB's at all.
No, and my take is always it's leadership, right? Leadership matters. You have a consistent leadership who helps support the teachers by giving them the professional development that they need and the resources they need. That's our role, right? Our teachers work their butts off. It's not any lack or anything on their part. We need a guide.
Okay, is there any more board comment before we vote on the compliance? Do you have any? Okay, all right, so this is the first time we're doing a monitoring report with a new rubric. And so my understanding is that we are going to vote, I think we're gonna vote 16 times.
16 times?
No.
We're
I think
gonna-
we just filled-
Twice.
Plus, yes, no.
Each
So we're not gonna do
Once
the
on each item.
individual things here.
No, 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 no.
No.
It is overall,
We
we
voted
vote on the monitoring report, like,
And
is
then-
it sufficient to give us the information we need to understand outcomes and make a determination about the outcomes? Point two is, what do we think of the outcomes?
Okay, all right,
Do we have public comment on this?
where, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yep. Did we make a motion?
We haven't made. the
We haven't
motion
made the
yet.
motion yet.
So can you just wait until we? You feel free to.
See,
Yeah. So. I think. We will give you multiple opportunities to comment here because we'll first take the action. Well,
Just.
oh, right, one action to, okay, right, so I would entertain a motion to. Evaluate the monitoring report based on. Policy interpretation and relevance and adequacy of compliance criteria. According to the rubric that has been laid out here.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
I'm.
Laura moves, Jen seconds, and now we'll open it up for public discussion, and this is an action item, so we do welcome public discussion.
Thank you. I just had to comment, because of the discussion about the ends policy. This is at least the second meeting I've been to where we've talked about this. The ends are so critical in policy governance because they're really meant to contain the community's vision for what it wants from the school district. And the ends that are in policy right now were developed even before I was on the board. Like they were approved right, like literally the meeting before I came on the board in 2016. So they may be due for a refresher, but I will tell you that the attendance at those meetings when the community was really defining these ends was extremely high. It's not like this. It was rooms packed full of people trying to say what they wanted from the school district. And words, literally down to words, were workshopped with the community. And so if you're gonna make a change to the ends policy, it can't just be a quick, like, first, second, third reading. It needs to be a community process where people have real input and they are really listened to. With regard to metrics, we had asked 2 superintendents ago to create ends metrics. That was meant to be on his plate to say the community says what it wants from the district. It's on you as superintendent under policy governance to tell us what metrics we're going to use to measure whether we're meeting those ends. That was never really done sufficiently. And there was a lot of turnover, obviously at the superintendent level, but also at the high level of district staff. So that made that very challenging to come up with a good set of metrics for what are admittedly some pretty fuzzy ends in some cases. I would just recommend that if you're gonna go down the path of changing ends, that we keep that in mind. And we have that discussion with the community. Like, it's one thing to want something, it's also, there has to be a balance, right? There may be some things that are challenging to measure, but the community may still want them and we may have to be creative. In that regard, I would absolutely recommend that you talk to folks like Adam Bunting at CVSD, who's been working really hard on trying to find ways of holistically measuring how students are doing as a, not just a NAEP test or a STAR test, but how students as a whole are doing in some way that can be aggregated. Yeah, and with regard to proficiencies, I would just also reiterate that there were years of work put into defining proficiencies that reflected both our ends and the state standards, and then breaking those down in minute detail into rubrics. So, you know, Momin and Ally will absolutely attest that they get proficiency-based grades, and they have since middle school, that may not reflect exactly word for word what's in the ends right now, but they really started with the ends and were broken down into our students becoming proficient in all these things that the community would like them to be proficient in. And that's all. Thank you for all the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All right, so we'll just, I think what we'll do is we'll just say all those in favor and we'll vote to approve the idea of the of ranking it like this, and then we'll actually vote per member. So the motion is just use this rubric, but then the voting will happen apart from the motion, I think. I think that's what I understood we have to do.
I think we can just vote.
Yeah,
Just
I
voting.
think, I thought like 2 meetings ago, we voted to adopt this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we, this was.
I think this is already.
Well, I'm just remembering there was a meeting where we didn't take a motion specifically to do this. And like we took all the votes.
I
And
will
we
move-
were challenged.
All right.
No, we
We
were
already-
exhausted,
all we have to
so
do-
we accepted the report.
Yeah, we.
Yeah, we accepted.
Accepted it.
Yeah.
Here, we're
I don't
going to
think we-
implement the rubric.
I thought each person was going to, I thought each board member was going to mark their own scores and then they were gonna meet.
And they're aggregated. I have the spreadsheet. Would you like me to take the,
So-
you do the roll, I can do the accounting?
Sure.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is I think what we should do is, and it's okay, we can take a minute on this. It's our first time. What I'm saying is that I think we take the action to say that we are, monitoring this report. And then we take the votes. And all those votes are recorded.
That sounds fine,
Right.
but it's one motion, I think.
It's one motion. It's one motion. That I know.
Well, then we have to change the motion because I only said this one.
So the motion failed.
So the motion fails. So we're gonna have another public comment period.
I didn't know.
So-
Okay. I think you're really overthinking this.
I think we have to
Really
get
do.
this right. This is the first time we've ever done it.
Oh, it's just.
It's okay. We're not in a rush. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to monitor this, to monitor this report. No, I would entertain a motion to evaluate this monitoring report based on the rubric, that we have in front of us here. Do I have a motion?
You gonna go that simple?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, so
Second.
Dan motions, Laura seconds, any discussion? Public comment? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Okay, now we're gonna go and actually vote
Okay.
on the, but it's not an action, it's just votes. All right, so there's two things, monitor report and district goals. They're separate things that we're thinking about. So the first one that you're gonna be voting on is the monitoring report itself, interpretation, relevance, and adequacy. And it goes from 0 not compliant to 4 advanced compliant. Has everybody read the definitions of not compliant, beginning compliance, approaching compliance, proficient compliance, advanced compliance?
Yes.
Yes.
So we're okay. So I'm gonna go around and you're each gonna tell me your vote for the monitoring report itself. 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So, Michelle,
For the monitoring report,
For the monitoring.
for the monitoring report.
you're saying beginning compliance for the monitoring report?
Approaching.
Approaching.
Is that two?
Yeah,
That's
look at the
two.
top,
It's a tie, it's a tie.
gives the points.
So 0, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, 0,
Yeah.
1, 2, 2. Okay. Yes, I would say two, sorry. Approaching compliance also.
3.
3.
I give it 4.
All right, and then I would do, yes.
Did you do?
And I would give it 2. And the reason that, and then I think what I wanna do is I wanna say, okay, so. The people who voted for approaching compliance were Michelle, Jen, and Seamus. The people who voted for proficient compliance were Laura, Dan, Ally, and Moman. And the person who voted for advanced compliance was Austin. And would any board member like to explain their vote? For me, it's, I really wanna see longitudinal data everywhere to see how we're doing over time, which I understand we couldn't do for stars, but I wanna see longitudinal data for everything else.
Yeah.
And I agree.
As the outlier, I'll say I gave the score I did because I felt like Dr. Clark provided very clear interpretation, given the way the policies were written, and contextualize all the numbers in a way that he clearly grasped the information and has a good understanding of them, and so I'm giving it a 4 based on what could reasonably be done, accepting obviously the shortcomings and the vagueness in the policy, which I don't fault of.
Yeah, and I would also say the same, that I feel like with you, Seamus, and I do think that Dr. Joe, you did a great job in the way all of this information was presented, and the shortcoming for me is just, again, not having that longitudinal data. So it's not anything outside of what you can control right now. Everything that you've presented and the way this is done, I think is excellent.
Any other board comment? Okay, great. So then the next thing we'll vote on, this is called district outcomes, overall compliance with policy goals. So this is the district achieving the goals that are implied in the ends, or is the district, is the district achieving the ends? So we'll go around. I'll give everybody a minute to consider their final score here. And this time, I'm sorry, I will go all the way around. So Michelle.
A 2.
Moment. Ally.
I'm sorry. I would say 2.
Laura.
I'm gonna say 3 because it's like a 2 points. 3, I can just give based on what we have.
Sure. Dan.
3.
All right, now I'm at 2. So now I'm gonna read out where, who voted for that. So for district outcomes, approaching compliance 2 points, that was Michelle, Moman, Ally, Jen, Seamus. And on proficient compliance, that was Laura, Dan, and Austin. And then the next thing we're gonna vote on is compliance plan acceptable? I think the compliance plan was the points that you had about you know, all the things you had written down.
Yep.
So everybody remember that?
Yes.
All right, so Michelle.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Jen.
Stay Alan.
I thought you had already said
No,
yes.
you're okay. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm also a yes. So that's unanimous compliance plan acceptable. For that. Great.
So just one quick summary, I did enter this into the spreadsheet, and the last time we talked about this, we had some discussion about the median that I had proposed as being possibly faulty. So what I did is I added another option in here to summarize the results, which is basically counting the votes that are proficient and above, right? So that makes it a compliant, not compliant determination by both measures, where the median is 3 on both. And the, we're only 6, so we don't have a clear majority, but it's evenly split. It's 3 above and 3 below. So,
And
what's that?
well, I mean, the thing is that it's just, I think the purpose of going back and redoing this was that we're not punishing, or the point is that this will get better. And we're just starting the process of making it better.
That's my, yeah, exactly.
And-
Absolutely, but to the extent that we need to like record a determination, we have.
Yeah, and also something that Jen had talked about for this is that we should, starting with this one, we should put this on the website, just, and so if you could advise us about how to put it, just in the simplest possible form to say, in January, we monitored academic proficiency, and this is where the board came out on it. And then we'll obviously show that longitudinally, and hopefully what we'll see is that over time it goes up.
Because that's the other thing is this year, as we do our strategic plan and we look at our ends and we do all of those things, I keep harping on the idea of a scorecard where we can actually track things like this. So that we can see how it improves with time. So.
Any other board comment on monitoring report 1.2? All right, well, thank you to the whole school district and superintendent for spending your lives educating other people's children. Thank you for.
We love what we do, and we love what we do it for.
And thank you for making this happen. Again, and thank you for making it happen before our budget bill.
No worries.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And so the first item on that is to approve the minutes of the December 13th, 15th, and 17th meetings. Did the board have any comments on the minutes that were in the board packet? All right, so I think we can, so those are approved. Moving on to the AP vouchers. Were there any questions about the AP vouchers? All right, so those are approved. Were there any questions about the payroll? I have to say, I don't remember seeing these before.
This is the first time we've seen it in a couple months.
Yeah. We're bringing everything for clear transparency.
Okay, all right. And now the next ones, I think we would actually want to take full actions on, yeah. So, there's 2 voucher checks, one to Vermont Mechanical and one to Essex Westford School District. So I would entertain a motion to approve the voucher check to Vermont Mechanical in the amount of $65,242.49.
I move.
Laura moves,
I'll second.
Jen seconds, any discussion? And this is an action item, so any public? Welcome to
We don't
comment.
have it. Don't warn the public comment.
Yeah, we should have checked that box. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. I would approve, I would entertain a motion to approve a voucher check to the Essex Westford School District in the amount of $116,684.04. Laura moves. I think Michelle seconds. Any discussion? Is there any public comment? All those in favor? Aye. The motion passes. So, real quick, the January 14th agenda. What we've got on there right now is a couple of interesting superintendent report updates, an update on the cell phone compliance, how that's going, and also an update on trades and career education, exactly that concerning things we were hearing about inability of South Burlington students to get the career education that they are looking for. So I'm looking forward to those. Action items, it'll be where we take action on the selection of library materials. Up for action would be a redistricting statement if we wanted to release something to the press. Voting on the fiscal year 2027 budget. And related to that, the school district meeting warning. So, and I hope that we can approve it next meeting in order to be in compliance with the city charter and to give enough time for printing the ballots and all that. But if we can't agree next week, then we will probably schedule a special meeting or something like that immediately after to keep hashing it out. Finally, discussion item, it will be the second reading of the video surveillance draft revision, which we talked about today. Any comments on the agenda for next week? All right, great. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Dan, Laura motions, Dan seconds, any discussion? All those in favor?